shoes look fire, but they're getting cold feet. Man, I'm all in when it comes to those drinks. Cause I ain't worried about what somebody gon' think. And I ain't worried about what somebody gon' see. Nothing y'all can do, y'all cannot control me. Brainstorm, y'all minds got a slow leak. Brainwaves crash, this is getting so deep. Everybody, every time I go speak, don't believe the hype, then it's what you gon' see. I can't be controlled. I can't be controlled. I can't be controlled. There's no stopping us now. I can't be controlled. Cause we're not in the crowd. I can't be controlled. You can't stop us right now. I can't be controlled. No, I can't be controlled. If I don't wanna be there, then it's time for me to go. Money is the motor, so if y'all don't even know the stuff that you can do to buy me, y'all are finally exposed. Hold up, man, you know that I'm honestly the GOAT. And I'm all good like I'm trying to be the Pope. If you talking money, then it's gotta be a joke. But if the money talks, I estimate it's gotta be a quote. Oh my God, man, you can't lie to me, I'll know. So really, if you try it, then you gotta be exposed. Headstrong, even when my mind is getting old. But even so, you need to know that no, I can't be controlled.
Live from iRacing's virtual Phoenix Raceway in Avondale, Arizona, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Week 4 of the 2022 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series on RaceSpotTV. The West Coast swing continues to open this 2022 campaign, and as always, we're happy that you're spending your Monday night with us here with RaceSpot. Our producer Hugo Luis is downstairs, as always. Nolan Rempel and myself, Evan Pasoko, in the booth. And Nolan, a fourth and a very different challenge for these NASCAR next-gen cars tonight. We've seen it on the plate tracks. We've seen it on a couple of big super speedways, the shortest of the tracks we've seen so far, and also notably a championship preview for later this season.
And of course, you talked about how much different of a challenge this track is. The last three facilities had each of a challenge of their own. Of course, Daytona, you had to worry about the pack racing. Atlanta and Las Vegas, you had to worry about looseness out of the corners. Now, time to worry about the drivers around you who get set to slam on the brakes in Avondale, Arizona. And even this will be a bit of a taste of the type of challenge we could be seeing even next week at the Circuit of the Americas. But you mentioned before, not going to be returning to Phoenix Raceway until November the 7th for the season finale. And of course, that should be one fiery championship round as well. You know how excited the racing here at Phoenix can be. We've both seen it before. We saw it last year, and we're getting set to see if it'll be a similar situation this time around as well in the next-gen cars.
And it should be fun to see how much that we see here tonight translates to that finale in November. This will also be a preview for all of the short tracks on the calendar, the Bristols, the Richmonds of the world. We'll see how much we do really learn here in the land of the sun. I know it is still very early in this 2022 campaign, but you mentioned those three different racetracks we've been to. We have seen three different race winners. Daniel Eberhardt, Brandon Six, and then most recently, Connor Horn won last Monday night in Las Vegas. He is your championship leader headed into this afternoon. 7 points ahead of Cody Harris, Dick Silver, Brandon DeBowie, and Brandon Six inside of the top five in the standings. Again, a long way to go, but wins for the likes of Eberhardt, Six, and Horn. Nolan notable because, of course, those drivers go to the very top of the playoff standings. We're not going to talk too much about that until we get, Richmond to the Glen to Daytona later in this regular season. But certainly getting a win out of the way early makes you feel a lot better about your hopes, especially again with so many unknowns as this car is going to continue to develop over the course of the spring and summer months.
Oh, absolutely. You know that these drivers are going to be having to kind of focus up a little bit more if you haven't gotten the race win, but if you've gotten yourself your one race win, as long as you show up, then for the remaining races, you will find yourself secure at the top of the championship boards all the way up until playoff season. So for a lot of drivers, the focus could be get it out of the way early on and definitely take advantage of the tracks you're good at where you can find them, right? Because obviously every single race that passes by, that's one less opportunity you have to lock your way into the playoffs early.
When we talk about this Phoenix Raceway, of course, revitalized a couple of years ago, changed the configuration. What you're looking at now is the back straightaway. That used to be the front stretch here at what was then Phoenix International Raceway. This racetrack is 1 mile in distance. The start-finish straight, if you will, has 3 degrees of banking. You'll head right into the dogleg, though, progressively banked at 10 to 11 degrees. Of course, that inside apron paved and wide open for these drivers. Turns 1 and 2, 8 to 9 degrees of progressive banking. You get back down to 3 and 4, a little bit more progressively banked from 10 to 11 degrees, Nolan. And we'll talk through our entire SK Sim Racing starting lineup in just a few moments. But I do want to note, again, 48 drivers attempted to qualify for tonight's race. 5 were sent home, and there are some big names that will not make tonight's Phoenix 156. So, notably, talking about those names, we will not see Garrett Hess, Mike Kaczynski, Chris Edwards, or Matt Danson and Liam Sheen in the field here tonight. Those last two certainly huge names. They're going to miss out on a lot of points by not qualifying in to tonight's race.
More particularly for me when it comes to notable moments is going to be that of Matt Danson, right? He was in the playoffs last season and was looking set to try to get himself off to a strong run, but Matt Danson has not had a good start to his season. He's been typically a midfield car. He's going to definitely be hoping that he still holds the monopoly when it comes to road course racing skill when we get around to the Circuit of the Americas in just 1 week's time. This is going to be a potential dangerous run for Matt Danson. He's at a huge risk here on losing out at some very precious points, which will make it that much harder for him to get into the playoffs later on down the season.
It's also notably tough for the likes of Chris Edwards because Chris Edwards failed to qualify in Fontana, Las Vegas, and now Phoenix. So 3 straight weeks in a row, Chris misses the starting field. The good news, if any, is that when he does make his next start, Nolan, he will get at least 15 bonus points, right? So for all the drivers who failed to qualify, they will get a 5-point bonus. The next time they qualify for a race, 5 points is actually going to be more than some of the drivers who race in this race, right? And finish 37th on back. But the idea behind that bonus, Nolan, to keep those drivers who failed to qualify for a race engaged in the series, you also just can't ride 5-point bonuses towards a playoff spot. So there is some positive, but for guys like Danson, for guys like Sheen, if you don't get a win this year, we saw how close a lot of those positions into the postseason were last year. 5 points is going to be good, better than none, but certainly I think missing 1 race could really hurt those guys.
1 race, that's all it takes to just cost yourself a shot at the championship. The final minute warm is underway, and I do want to kind of bring to attention another challenge we haven't talked about so far over the course of the night. That dogleg in particular, before the track was reconfigured and the pit road was extended around through turn 4, you were able to see drivers hitting the inside right at the apex. You can't do that anymore because of, well, the elephant in the room, that large pit wall there just looms out wide to make it so that line is a lot shallower now. And I haven't been seeing too many drivers even flirting down there unless they're looking to go for an almighty dive on turn 1. Otherwise, they usually only lose time by going down there now.
And you have to question, is the risk going to be worth it, right? You obviously have to make a little bit of a later dive. I'm sure we will see some drivers go to the apron on restarts. You're also going to watch those lane violations. We saw Kevin King maybe lose a look at a race win last week at Vegas because of that. Let's go trackside, though. Take a look at your SK Sim Racing starting grid. And speaking of which, Kevin King is on pole. A 27.516 means that he'll bring us to the green flag tonight alongside a race winner this year in Brandon 6 P2. Michael Araya will start third alongside the 4-time defending series champion Andrew Freenosh in 4th position. They're both ahead of Connor Horn and Chris Rabel on row 3.
Row 4 holds Tom Wetmore with Sam Vieto beside him on row number 4 in 8th place. Joseph Tice, Daniel Eberhard rounding out the top 10. William Schmidt and Agnell Phillip in 11th and 12th.
Jeremy Miller and Bradley Burke will double up at row number 7. They'll be ahead of Anthony DeBarro, who starts 15th tonight, at Eric Stanford in 16th. Grant Davis finds himself 17th, and Jaron Winemaster will roll from 18th.
19th place holds Shane Parrish with Brandon Bowie in 20th place. Rounding out the top half of the field will be Coney Harris and Timothy Johnston. Michael Johnson and Kyle Kamer in 23rd and 24th.
Dane Cruz is going to be working from the midfield tonight alongside Steel Horse Racing's Thomas George. Nick Silver starts 27th, and James Pasquarello will roll from 28th. Sean Gasto, 29th. David Washington, 30th.
Brett McBride is 31st with Shane Ewing in 32nd. Ross Cato is 33rd with Nicholas Cohen in 34th. Nick Barra is 35th with James Ross in 36th.
Kyle Trudell will start 37th alongside Sean Kalis in 38th position. Brian Chambliss, David Cobb. You got Dylan DeParker, Matt Mara, and the last driver to sneak in, Manazzi Major. He was able to just edge the likes of Garrett Hess and others to qualify for your 43-car grid. So top to bottom of your SK Sim Racing starting grid again. Hess, Kaczynski, Edwards, Danson, and Sheen fail to qualify for tonight's race. Now, another interesting thing, Nolan, we talked about this in the fall, is that the pace car leaves the racetrack in turn number 2. Typically, at all other racetracks, especially for restarts, that gives the race leaders an opportunity to start the race whenever they would want. Not here at Phoenix. Drivers will have to wait for the Geico restart zone to get this one underway. We're happy that you're with us, though, on RaceSpotTV. The field in the hands of Kevin King as we say, let's go racing in Phoenix. We saw several drivers at the bottom hold the thought yellow in a spinner. It is William Schmidt in the 79 car around at the end of lap number 1, and we will slow things down right out of the gate as Kevin King leads the opening lap of this race, and he gets the first bonus point of the afternoon. Let's take a look. A little bit of 3 wide in traffic and a little bit of help there. A touch from behind. It was DeBarro who got into him.
Luckily managed to keep that thing out of the inside wall, so a little bit of smoked tires, but apart from that, no harm, no foul. And you saw actually William Schmidt try to gas it up to get it off of the racetrack, and that unfortunately kind of brought DeBarro down to the inside line with him. And in fact, DeBarro got a bit of a lucky break there. He almost went into the pit wall on the inside line, missed that by the skin of his teeth because William Schmidt just wouldn't let him come back up.
Yeah, it is super condensed on that part of the racetrack. Not something that was always an issue here at Phoenix, but you're right, they kind of got stuck on each other and just about drove each other into the inside wall. DeBarro finally got off of him just in time, and again, a quick yellow in this one. The point that I was going to make, Nolan, is we questioned how many drivers would go to the apron. Well, a lot of them did. They did have the patience. Remember, you cannot change lanes before the start-finish line. That includes if you're a driver on the bottom, you can't go to the apron until you get to the start-finish line. That counts as a lane change, and as soon as they got there, a lot of drivers went low. Notably, Tom Wetmore was about 25 feet below the yellow line, Nolan, way to the very inside. Didn't help him up much because it actually tightened his car up a lot as they went off it into turn number 1. But I think that certainly goes to show you drivers will be trying it all night long.
It's one of the big things about that dog leg and that yellow line in particular. It is a bit more of a suggestion line, as it's been said time and time again at the Phoenix Raceway, but it is definitely worth noting that you do lose so much speed now when you go down there. You didn't used to back in the early days, and that was actually the racing line that you wanted to take, right? If you wanted to be fast, you had to go below the apron. Not the case anymore. Now it's even a question of you're going to be able to stick your nose ahead on the entry into turn number 1. I would say it's only really effective at this point, Evan, if you're already door-to-door with them by the time you hit the dog leg. You're certainly not going to be able to execute a pass by going down there anymore.
Yeah, we'll see if drivers use it more as a positioning technique as opposed to, to a lane to actually advance their position and get up alongside somebody. Also notably from that incident, claiming responsibility for the caution flag is Anthony DeBarro. The lights were out on top of the pace car. He got the end of the longest line to drop to the rear. However, the caution will be delayed, so one more trip around under the yellow flag before this one gets back to it. And I know I mentioned it briefly on the grid, Nolan, but it's a very important thing to watch, those lane changes here at Phoenix, just because of the geometry of this racetrack. But I mentioned to Kevin King as well. Kevin King was in a really good position to win last week at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. He was the control car, but he changed high to low before the start-finish line. He got an end of the longest line penalty because of that, and instead of being a race winner, he led 59 laps more than anybody else, but only finished 17th in that Vegas race.
And of course, those little penalties, they can have very big consequences. It's one of those split-second mistakes, right? You make that choice, but it ends up costing you dearly in the long run. So that is not something that I imagine he's going to be looking to repeat anytime soon. So fingers crossed, we will not be seeing penalties like that later today as well. This time, lights are out aboard the Pacers car proper, and it looks like we will be green flag racing this time by as well.
And another reminder for the drivers as well that they need to wait for the restart zone. You cannot control it this early on because, of course, you still got a half a lap to go, and it would be a little bit of a messy procedure to let them fire off down the back straightaway and then actually go again. So once the field rounds through 3 and 4, then Kevin King can control this race as the inside line. He's going to decide when do we get back underway. Pace car off it in. We'll try it again with 150 laps to go in the Phoenix Desert. Right foot down. Green flag back in the air.
Green flags back out the field, filing through the dog line again up on the racetrack in the sprint down to turn number 1. Looking at Connor Horn, caught in the hornet's nest of cars up for the lead pack, and only Kevin King manages to break away clear. Freenach still battling it out with Brandon Six down the back straightaway and into turn number 3. The 88 Battle Beavers machine is going to be pulling ahead out of turn number 4.
Freenach has got the nose in front. He'll go to the apron all the way down to try to cut the corner, but Six still there. And Freenach simply defending the inside positioning. Michael Araya, look out. He's into the outside wall. Running in 4th position. Got loose all on his own. He will recover the after the turn Chevrolet Camaro, but he just threw away about a dozen positions there after he overcooked it going into turn 1.
Overcooking it just that little bit. It is a very, very big mistake that you're hoping drivers will not be making too much in the future. That is how cautions come, but Laride did a phenomenal job on keeping that car out of traffic on the low side. Could have been so much worse. Riding on board with the Extreme Performance Motorsports machine of Jaron Weimasser as he looks set to try to capitalize on the wounded bird of the number 44 after the turn Chevrolet. But Weimasser going to have to be a little bit more patient. He's also got somebody on his inside, just cleared from Eric Stanford.
Trying to shake off Stanford, and look out up the road. That was Bradley Burke on the inside of Laraya. They slammed doors as they came through the dogleg, and that's another concern, is what goes down must come back up to get into the turn. And I don't think the 44 left as much room as Burke was anticipating to both cars. Going to get a little bit of minor damage in that one. So now the 48 machine of Winemaster going to try to go underneath the 95 machine of Burke. That battle going on right now in the midfield for 14th to 15th position. And we can see with the lack of banking here at Phoenix, it is easy to overcook the corner. That's what Garrett Hess was talking about pre-race, Nolan, why he failed to qualify. He just blew the entry, overdrove it on his hot lap. That was the difference between making the show or not, as we look back and see the likes of Cody Harris and others. 3 wide into 1. Thinks better of it, pulls back on that, leaves it a 2x2 fight between Shane Parrish and Michael Johnson. But the other concern is the cars are more stable here, Nolan. We're more worried about car-on-car incidents than we were in the last 2 races of the season in Vegas and Fontana.
Right on board Nick Silver as well, who's just gonna get chopped up there by Cody Harris. He's also got Tim Johnson trying to find the inside line. So it still is a very big gaggle of race cars here that's just trying to get itself sorted and figure out where they want to be when it comes to the long run. See everybody on the top line just sticking to the banking because they know it's going to be quicker as opposed to following the inside line down on to the apron. But it looks like it's going to be a much cleaner second attempt here at the overall race start. We're now just about 10 laps under this latest green flag run as Cody Harris works the inside of Shane Parrish out of 4. Look out, Harris sliding sideways into the dogleg but hangs on.
And what a save by Harris, but look out. He pulls back up in front of traffic, and the 15 machine had to get out of the gas there. Rhett McBride just about ran him over after Cody Harris was getting tied off the corner, tried to stay off of the door of the car next to him, and just about spun himself out. So, yeah, they're still unstable. You can still lose it on your own. That all started Harris trying to avoid contact with the other driver, and again, he's very fortunate the dogleg was there. Check it out, pushing, trying to keep it off, gets loose all the way down to the dogleg. If that was basically any other racetrack, Nolan on the entry to the corner, he would have been down into the grass or into the inside wall. So the dogleg saves Cody Harris. He does lose several positions, though. He's now -4 overall, slided back down to the number 25 position. Lots of fighting going on back here. Kyle Trudell fighting for the 15 of Rhett McBride. A little bit further up the road, you got the number 56 of Tim Johnson fighting, the 52 of Sean Casto. All of this outside of the top 20 at more than 6 seconds off a race leader Kevin King, who's led all 15 laps so far.
And out of turn number 2, down the back straightaway, there you can see Shane Parrish in the middle of a long snaking train of Gen 7 stock cars down through to 3 and 4. How about that just up the road? Sean Casto trying to find the inside of James Pascarella. You got yourself all these little battles starting to develop throughout the course of this green flag run, and all of them are going to be getting a bit more feisty as the runs go on. Now, of course, we're at the point where tire wear are going to be starting to kick in big time evident. That is where we could be seeing some of these battles getting a little bit more physical as drivers get more desperate to make something stick.
Your drivers are already about a half a second slower on track now than they were 17 laps ago, and most of them logged their quickest laps of this race. So that tire wear is going to come into effect. Of course, we are racing just kind of southwest of Phoenix, Arizona. It's a pretty warm day, all things considered. But track temp, the big notable one, 102 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's really going to kind of amplify that tire wear. It is a relatively new surface, was repaved not that long ago and touched up with a reconfiguration, so it's not that abrasive of a surface, but it certainly is with the temperature going to be, I think, a tire wear race, especially because of how much sliding these cars are going to be doing in the corner. You're looking at the Downey machine of Daniel Eberhardt underneath the 67 of Connor Horn. This fight for P5 and 6. Horn trying to use the outside to carry speed on exit to get all the way through it around the number 90 machine, and you got the 94 of Agnew. Phillip in the bits as well, but the way that this battle rages on with Eberhardt going to the dogleg, looks that both lanes have a fighting chance, but top side prevails, and Connor Horn gets back around Daniel Eberhardt for the time being.
Gets around him for the time being, but of course, once again, the question will be for exactly how long. So I'm willing to bet there might be some cases where it wouldn't be for too long. There's Agnew Phillip in the A51 Pro Chevrolet, doing a good job, just sticking into the top 10 by just the smallest of margins. Only 7th place with Sam Nieto, Chris Rabel, and Grant Davis just tucked in behind. You see a lot of these guys are very tightly packed together, but nobody's really opting to make any moves, and I imagine it's because they're still trying to focus on more setting passes up for one another. And the one thing that I've been hearing so far all week long, Evan, leading up to this race, when it's come to drivers not just in this series but other series as well, is that Phoenix nowadays is one of the hardest tracks to overtake and with these Gen 7 cars. And it's not so much corner entry that you got to worry about. Starting the pass is easy. It's executed and completed is going to be the hard part, particularly on corner exit, right? Because that is where you can carry so much momentum on the high side. You really have to clear by mid-corner or you're not making that stick on the exit.
That is the key. It's all about setting it up, right? You can drive it as deep into the corner as you would like, but you're not setting yourself up for exit. And no, these are not long straightaways like we saw in Fontana, but because of the lower center corner speed, you really do need to focus on backing up your entry to carry speed through, because the pass is almost always going to be made on exit. Watch this. Eberhardt's going to drive it in very deep. He's almost going to get all the way around Connor Horn, and Connor Horn's going to get squeezed up by Donati. That was well executed there for Eberhardt, but see, Horn doesn't go away yet. Fights his way back, and I think he decides that, all right, maybe not worth the fight. Eberhardt took the battle to him the first time when Horn shook it off, maybe realizing Eberhardt might be a little bit quicker, not worth the battle. So Eberhardt now up to P5. I do also see a little bit of rear damage on that 67 machine of Horn, so maybe he found himself with a little bit of contact earlier in this race. He's ahead of Phillip and Nieto. Chris Rabel a little bit further behind. That's kind of a big group right here, P4 through P9 on the racetrack. Your top three have checked out from all of this, and a caution flag behind at lap number 25. It is a mess by the start-finish line. Several drivers spinning down to the apron. Dylan Parker, Sean Kalis, a couple of the names, and I believe the culprits was contact between Ross in the 14 and Parker in the 3.
Small three-car incident. It was all at the back of the field. Spots from about 36th to 39th to kick things off here. And you mentioned potential contact. That's one thing I was mentioning, that you're going to have to worry about other drivers on the racetrack, top of the broadcast. And I'm not going to lie, it looks like James Ross of the Flow Racing 14 kind of came down on Parker, who really shoved it in there. And, of course, just nowhere for Sean Kalis to go, who just got collected and nicked by James Ross as he started to spin his number 14 car back around into the order. So a small three-car, actually making a four-car incident. Matthew Mara actually went into the inside wall trying to keep it out of that.
A tough break for Mara, and what that is going to do is open up pit service for the first time tonight. These drivers all have 4 additional sets of tires, and it looks like they want to burn at least one pair. We are just about 1/5 of the way through this race, a little bit shy of that, so drivers feel like it may be worth it. Let's see what the call is going to be. You can see Kevin King in a number 1 pit stall, courtesy of qualifying on pole. Right side's up, left side's up. It's going to be wholesale 4 tires and a fuel. Freenosh looks up high, but because of that positioning, that pit lane exit line is no more than 2 feet out of Kevin King's box, and Freenosh probably a little bit better there, only 14.7 seconds in the box for Freenosh compared to 15.1 for Kevin King, but that's where you get your due dividends of getting pole position is he wins the race off of the pit lane. Now, Agnew Phillip Nolan opted not to come down pit road, but the 94 is in this time, and this is a bold call for the A51 Pro Chevrolet Camaro. He did attempt, I should say, to enter pit lane the first time. Nolan missed his pit stall. So he's got to come all the way back around, get service now, and he's going to go from a top 10 car to likely outside of the top 30 before the next restart.
Very, very tough break there for Agnew Phillip, and once again, it's another bad day for the A51 Pro crew, and this is something that we've been talking about time and time again, right? The first 2 races, Agnew Phillip just kind of shot by nothing of his own doing, but just had his races demolished by the mistakes of others. Las Vegas, it all went up in smoke because of his own errors, and starting to look like it'll be second verse, same as the first, for him here at the Phoenix Raceway today. So Agnew Phillip is not going to be having a very fun time at the moment. He's going to be having to cycle all the way to the back of this field, and he's got a lot of work ahead of him. Good news is there's still a long way to go as well. Still over 120 laps left to go in this race.
Yeah, I suppose if you were going to make a mistake, I'd rather make it 30 laps into the race instead of with 30 laps to go. But certainly putting things back for Agnew Phillip, who is known to qualify well and hold track position well. Just taking a look as he paces now, he is being scored in 41st position. So he is way down the running order. Now, it was not everybody on pit road. As the lights go out on top of the base car, you'll notice the 7 Kyle Trudell has gone to the race lead. Nolan, he opted to not pit. He is the only driver who did not take fresh tires.
Very interesting call there. We'll see Kyle Trudell and what he'll be able to do on this restart. I will say this, even that 20-lap run or so, that is enough to have a monumental difference on tires around the Phoenix Raceway. So Trudell could have a rough ride ahead of him, especially with some very aggressive drivers like Andrew Freenosh and Brandon Sick right behind him. This could get interesting here for the Extreme Performance Motorsports number 7 Chevrolet.
Second time in a row, the control car wants to be on the bottom. Let's see what Kyle Trudell can do. He qualified 37th for this race. His XPM Chevrolet now on the front row. Green flag back in the air with 29 laps down. Let's see what the 7 can do on old tires. Down to the inside, it comes Andrew Freenosh. It's only going to be a challenge for second right now, though. Kevin King's got the advantage up high, and look at the 7. Washes wide, 3-1 in the battle for the race lead, and through the middle, Kevin King goes back to the top of the scoring pylon.
Oh, Wetmore to the inside of Brandon 6 and 3 and 4. Almost took out the number 66 car. But Wetmore forced to yield, and he'll lose spots to Daniel Eberhardt instead. It was quite the effort, though, for the two-tech number 51 Chevrolet that could have gone up in smoke in a heartbeat. And I think one Eberhardt can take his lucky stars as trouble in turn number 2. Bradley Burke gets hit hard over on the outside wall. William Schmidt, as well as Agnell Phillip, also involved.
And it looked like Burke just overcooked it and caused this one on his own. Third caution flag of the night, just 31 laps in to this Phoenix 156. And we saw the end of it there. It certainly involved that get wet number 95 Chevrolet. Let's see, into one. It just got a little bit loose on his own and might have been able to save it. Nolan just ran out of chances there with the field coming through, and the Sibidinana Schmidt we also saw get involved, takes a piece out of it too.
You had also seen William Schmidt had spun around, and Phillip had that missed until William Schmidt backed it back up across the racetrack. And again, nowhere for Agnell Phillip to go. He cannot catch a break. I mean, it's hard not to feel sorry a little bit for the number 51 or the number 94 machine at this point, right? It's just every single week it's something going wrong, and right at the end of what was a good run too.
Again, was in a good position, made this mistake on his own, found himself back in traffic, and then an incident happens in front of him. And listen, that is why you don't want to be in the midfield, right? I mean, it's not as nuanced as it would be, Nolan, if we only had 40 cars, right? If we only had 40 cars and you opted to, say, not qualify, to start at the rear and you get involved in an incident, that's on you. You can't do that, right, with elimination qualifying. So everybody's queuing for time to make the show. You very clearly don't want to intentionally be back there, but all of this, again, there is some luck involved. Don't get me wrong. It is pretty bad luck. But if Agnell Phillip does it to make that self-inflicted error on pit road, he is nowhere near that incident and really only has himself to blame, unfortunately, which is tough because Agnell Phillip has been very, very good to start the year. Of course, we talked about qualifying on pole for the Daytona 250, winning the Clash at the LA Coliseum. So for all of these positives that he's had so far this year, he hasn't necessarily had the results to speak for it, entering tonight 19th in the points, and if that's severe front-end damage, likely worsening after this evening.
Such a tough break, and I mean, I have a feeling that Agnell Phillip is starting to get a little bit frustrated how he just seems like he cannot catch a break week after week. And you mentioned it perfectly about how every one of these mistakes and every single bad performance is going to be costing him severely in the overall championship battle. And unfortunately, he's going to have to hope that he's good enough at the road courses because that's what we got next week. And there's not going to be a caution to save him there if his race goes bad.
Those races have none. So when we head to Circuit of the Americas next week, it'll be a caution-free race. Doesn't matter how many cars get wadded up. We won't slow things down when we go racing at the Formula One track at Austin, Texas. So that is 39 laps non-stop. No opportunity for mistakes. Consistency going to be the big storyline in that event. Lights should be going out on top of the race car this time. You might see Bradley Burke and Agnell Phillip on the left of your screen, they just squeaked out of pit road ahead of the pace car. Obviously, they do not want to go a lap down. So they have been coming in and out of the pit lane, getting damage fixed, and then getting back out, maintaining their lead lap status. But I assume on all yellow flags tonight, they're going to be doing that same song and dance. Get down, get repaired, and get back out. Would it be easier in theory to just sit there for a couple of minutes and get the car fixed? Yeah, but then you're also at a disadvantage of being several laps down. So they're going to space out those damage repairs incrementally over the course of the afternoon, give themselves plenty of time to slowly repair those race cars back to form. So a couple of yellows to start this one. Pace car back off it in. We'll see how it goes this time through. The third yellow going to fall behind us, and for the second time, Kevin King going to be in control of a restart. He picks the inside for his boosted biz Chevy Camaro, and he is back on the throttle. Green flag in the air, and a great jump for the 31.
Great launch there for the number 31, down and into turn number 1, clear by 2. Friedrich, though, also clear behind. Look out, Eberhard and 6 squeezed each other in to the inside of the racetrack in the overall battle for third place. 6 starting drop back. Eberhard clear, but not quite into the corner. He was clear, but 6 throws it back in, not wanting to make it easy for the SK Sim Racing number 94 Mustang. But Brandon 6 now starting to slip a little bit further back as Connor Horn gets set to try to pull the high side out of 2.
And Connor Horn has been very good tonight, has rode around exactly where he runs right now in that 4th or 5th position for a majority of the night. He's clear of 6 on the bottom, and he'll take that chance to sidestep down and get in front of him. So now it's going to be a fight between Brandon 6 and Tom Wetmore. The 66 on the bottom, the 51 up on the outside. We have seen the outside win out in several of these fights tonight. Is this going to be the case? You're looking off of the back of Connor Horn in 4th to the battle for 5 and 6. Again, 6 gets that run in, but it's exit where the outside is oh so good, and give it to Tom Wetmore as he takes over P5.
Wetmore steps up and takes over the 5th position. They continue, though, to scrap it out deeper in the midfield, all throughout the field. Top to bottom, Hornets nest of cars, while the top grouping looks so much more settled out and so civilized. It's a very fine line between where the calm and the chaos lies, right, Evan? And you can get a pretty good idea just at first glance exactly where that fine line rests on the racetrack at the moment.
And drivers still trying to learn that, right? As the night goes on, we're learning how these tires are going to wear. Drivers are learning where they can be aggressive, where they can't necessarily be. Track temps actually dropping a little bit as well as we race deeper into the afternoon. Again, we mentioned this last week, but because of these West Coast races, if we're racing, say, in Richmond, and it's a day race, we're racing at 3:04 in the afternoon race start, right? That's the hottest time of the day as Brandon 6 tries to go to the outside of Wetmore. But on the West Coast here, we're starting early. We're starting noon, 1 p.m. It's only going to get hotter as the afternoon goes on, so it's something we saw in Vegas. It's something we saw in Fontana, not seeing those temperatures climb quite yet here in Phoenix, as, again, Brandon 6 really wants to get above the 51 car, but unable to do so far.
Unable to do so, but the race is still young, as is this run, so he will have his chance later on as the night goes along. Connor Horn starting to lose touch to the top 3 up the road. Caution flag is out yet again, and this time it will be turn number 4 where we see our 4th caution flag of the night stem from, and looks like it'll be a misfortune for Brian Chambers with the number 25 car down into turn number 3. Just gets tipped around by the number 23 car of Nicholas Morrow.
They were side by side at a battle for 35th and 36th, and Matt now saying over the radio it felt like the 25 came down on him. I'm sure the opinion of Brian Chambers is that the 23 came up on him, but contact way in the back leads to another caution flag, and it was Chambers who certainly got the worst of it because he spun out into the outside wall.
That's the thing about race drivers, right? Each of them will always have their own views about how an incident has taken place with this ever car-to-car content. Sometimes it can very much be a he-say, she-say type of situation. Luckily, we have the advantage of being able to take a look at things right in the moment, don't we? Something that drivers on the track don't often get the luxury to be able to do themselves unless they're having to take the tow back, and something that I'm pretty sure Brian Chambers obviously did not have to do. It was only a very light brush with the outside wall, and interestingly enough, because we're going to be seeing left side damage on the side of the number 25 car, and you'd never guess that that damage on the left side came from an outside wall on a left-hand turning racetrack.
Yeah, spun it all the way around and backed it in passenger side first into the outside wall, and I think Mara fortunate to get away with relatively minor damage in that. Of course, he doesn't want to be involved in an incident at all. But he, I believe, is saying over the radio as well that he is going to take responsibility for the incident. He does have right front damage from that. Again, smaller racetrack. I don't think minor cosmetic issues like that could be quite as much of a problem. He did get some pretty significant rear end damage as well on his car. I would be more worried about the back end damage than the front end damage if I was the driver of the number 23 machine. But it is worth noting, Nolan, that the back end damage came from a totally separate incident. Only the right side and right front damage is new on Amara's machine, and he does claim responsibility, so he'll drop to the rear of the field. A couple of drivers in for some quick repairs and not quick repairs, but some quick fixes, if I will. Drivers trying to get cars fixed up. Of course, they don't actually have that fast repair available to them on pit road. They're going to actually have to take the time to get damage fixed, but some drivers coming in for short bits of damage fixing. Bowie, Chambliss, Burke, Schmidt, all trickling in and out of the pit lane under this fourth yellow.
So a couple of drivers making their way down the pit road, and obviously those are drivers that could have even been collected in incident several laps ago at this point in time, but they just want to make sure that they could get all that damage fixed. And why not, right? You're most likely at the back of the field anyway. May as well take the opportunity to come on down and get damage fixed wherever you can. Every little second spent on pit road fixing damage, especially under caution, will most certainly help you out in the long run. Tell you what, it may be a virtually new racetrack compared to the old Phoenix, but it certainly does seem to be driving relatively similar, save of course for that dogleg. And in fact, I even remember way back when Phoenix used to be one of those tracks almost completely flat, and that dogleg wasn't even present. You had grass, and you couldn't even go down there unless you really were wanting to tear up your race car on the bottom end. And I have to ask, do you prefer like this one? I personally prefer the concrete leg as opposed to grass down there now.
Well, no, that was a discussion on Twitter this week as well, as the lights go on top of the pace car. Do you prefer new Phoenix, old Phoenix? Remember, the surface itself, everything above that yellow line is still the same banking. Nothing has been touched there. Of course, it was repaved when it was renovated, but the actual, footprint, if you will, of the racing surface is the same. But you're right. I mean, there used to be grass down there, but the pace car just pulled in what used to be turn 4. Of course, that whole dogleg was grassed up, and I think a lot of people like the old Phoenix simply because of nostalgia, Nolan. It was also a much tighter racetrack, right? You couldn't fan to the apron. You really felt like you were on top of each other. Again, even though the footprint of the racing surface hasn't changed, getting rid of all that grass and flipping it around certainly has given them a lot more room to work with. The pace car's off it in, and Kevin King once more executes a very good restart jump to the inside. The fight's going to be with Daniel Eberhard. He gets underneath Freenosh. Does he have enough speed, though, to make the inside work?
Doesn't look like it. Kevin King is clear out of turn number 4. Drag race between Freenosh and Eberhard down to the turn number 3. The number 90 SK Sim Racing machine is going to be clear. And Freenosh going to continue to have to fight the outside line to see if he can potentially make something work. But you can already see how much slower that inside line can be when you commit to the dogleg. Daniel Eberhard still side by side with Freenosh, now trying to make an attack on Kevin King through 1 and 2.
Trying to do what he can, but you can see as it pushes up there, he just can't hold it down. Freenosh back around the outside and clear. There's some 3 wide behind them, all near Cody Harris at 11th position. They survive that bit of a tight squeeze through turn 3 and 4 after it was a 30 out of Michael Johnson, who went to the inside to make it 3 wide. Now it's just a 2 wide battle about 4 or 5 rows deep, with the 29 of Chris Rabel pushing a little bit wide there in the Ford Mustang. Number 29 of it up on the outside. He's going to go side by side into the corner with Johnson and hope that his high-bank Spodcast Ford can hang on. Even now, 3 wide behind. I think that's Grant Davis way up on a 3rd lane.
Grant Davis up on the 3rd lane, trying to make 3 wide work around the outside line. The number 24 car with Hasib Design on the hood is going to be getting clear of Joseph Tice. That's because Joseph Tice got a bit loose on the bottom side exiting turn number 2. Nick Silver continues to hold strong on the low side, and he will now clear from Davis out of turn 4. Back down through the dogleg as we start lap number 51, as it is already 50 down, almost a third of the way into our race at Phoenix. And Davis looking set to continue his charge up towards the top 10.
Doing what he can to pick away. A couple of big movers, including the likes of Winemaster plus 10, Cody Harris plus 12. Grant Davis also in the midst there as well, finding himself in the green and working his way towards the front of the field. We talked a lot about Connor Horn tonight, and it's been, again, a pretty stable night so far. Hasn't really gained much, hasn't lost much. The Smith Sim Racing Chevy pretty consistently a 4th or 5th placed car, and it's been 4th for the last couple of restarts. He holds. It's still Kevin King in the lead. He has led 48 of the 51, now 52 laps complete, making it 49 laps led for King. The only other 3 laps led tonight were under the yellow by Kyle Trudell, who opted to not take a pit stop for service under one of the earlier yellow flags. He led 3 laps under yellow, then was immediately passed up, but the green flag came back. He's running down in 29th. But other than that, it's been the Kevin King show, Nolan, and don't hold your breath on green flag runs, helping these drivers get to Kevin King, because that has been his strong suit, is long green flag stretches where that 31 looks really dialed in.
I think Kevin King has definitely proven so far in the early running of this 2022 season that he is going to be a very serious threat for that championship. Could he potentially be that driver that brings Grenage's 5-year-long reign to a close? The only way to to find out is going to be to see how the rest of the season plays out. Oh, heads up, bit of a replay here. Oh, the 82 car for Spotify slamming the inside wall. So big trouble there for the number 82 car as he slid down hard into the inside wall.
It was a nice-looking car from a Nazi Major before that contact, but a lot of damage now on that Spotify Hulu Chevrolet. Smacked the left-hand side. If he had spun it maybe 10 feet later, Nolan, he may have just avoided the fence, but just clipped that last part of the wall that was sticking out, and it gave him pretty severe damage. He now falls all the way down to 40th in the running order. Up front, things are calm. Mid-pack is where all the fun is. Look at this battle. Jeremy Miller underneath the 6 of Thomas George for 16th and 17th. And top side, squeezed high. Thomas George just with an inch to spare clears the 13 car, and now it's the 15 of McBride crossing back over and underneath.
It's all starting to kick off. It would seem Rhett McBride able to clear this time by through the dogleg on Jeremy Miller. That was the pass for 17th place. McBride pushing up the hill. Miller tries to go over-under, but it will be Rhett McBride to hold as strong in his BRS Chevrolet, thundering down the back straightaway, and now trying to charge down David Kolb just up the road and others. It is getting to be a bit of a hectic run for a lot of drivers in the field. Thomas George, the next driver in McBride's sights, as they throttle their way back down to turn number 1.
And you can see working the inside there, Ross Cato trying to make the bottom work. It's been a tough place to make passes. And you can see topside Tim Johnson, the better run down the back straightaway. He's going to be able to carry speed through. Won't matter. Caution flag. Is it behind this battle? It is, and it is Nicholas Mara who is turned around. There was an earlier incident just back on lap number 41 with his brother Matt Mara. Nick Mara was turned around, but Dylan Parker, Nolan, the one apologizing. Let's see what happened.
Oh, Nick Mara just going hard in the inside wall, slid back up and locked the brakes up before getting up and into the outside wall as well. That is a bit of an unfortunate wreck there for Nicholas Mara, who was not having the run that he needed to already today, and it's only going to go even worse now for Mara. And of course, you saw it was a clip from Dylan Parker, who was already taking responsibility for the incident.
I did think he thought he was going to be clear, tried to tuck in line behind Mara and just wasn't, evidently, and yeah, just sent the 22 machine right into the fence. A lot of pit service, though, happening under this lap number 58 caution flag. Almost all drivers down pit road, minus the top 7. So a lot of heavy hitters not pitting. King, Freenosh, Eberhardt, Miller, Cobb, Trudell, and Amara all stay out. That means that Connor Horn, first driver off of pit road, 4 tires at a fuel, and he should have a really big advantage now, Nolan, for the next restart.
Tell you what, it has been a wild race so far, hasn't it? 5 cautions in, averaging 1 about every 6 laps or so, but there have been some very long green flag runs, all things considered, in the midst of this. It's more so been a couple of cautions that have been back-to-back, right? And after that, you get yourself these 15-lap runs in between each of them, just about. So it has been a decent race. I'm sure there are a few drivers, though, particularly those like Kevin King, who are good on the long runs, that really just want to see this race go green so they can actually take advantage of a green flag run.
And that's all they want, right? They want an opportunity to be able to make some moves. And, you know, obviously the heavy hitters stay out, right? King, Freenosh, Eberhardt, Miller. There's no shock there. Those were all drivers that were already at the front of the field, Nolan. But a couple of drivers gambling here, right? David Cobb started 40th. He's now 5th. Kyle Trudell started 37th. He's now up to P6. Shouldn't be surprised that Trudell stays out. He did this a little bit earlier, but, you know, it's certainly a gamble because the top 6 drivers have 34 lap-old tires. Everybody else on the freshies much better off, obviously. So they're going to be significantly quicker. And we'll see now. Did we get a long green flag run? Do these drivers fall all the way down the running order? How does this play out?
I think this is going to be a bit of an interesting question as well, and something I'm actually just starting to realize here as we get deeper and deeper into these runs. We're under 100 laps to go, right? And it is not a longer race. It's not the longest racetrack in the world, and obviously, the shorter the racetrack is, the more laps you can go on one tank of fuel. Are we at the point yet where if you come down a pit road, you can make it to the end on fuel, or is that still a little ways off yet?
I would have to think, based on the trends, that there's no way we get that far without as many yellows to bring drivers down pit road for tires. They could be thinking fuel, right? Obviously, under the yellow flag, you're going to be able to save fuel than what you would do under green flag conditions. But I just think it's going to be a tire game. I think we're going to burn all of our sets of tires down there, and let's see what happens. Keep an eye on Connor Horn inside of row 4. He's going to be the first driver with fresh tires. Dylan Parker claimed responsibility for the last incident. He gets the end of the longest line to penalty. Pace cars off. Kevin King in control on the bottom. Fires away. He gets a good jump. Now let's see how long the old tires can hang on.
Pushing up the track is going to be Tom Wetmore through turn number 1 as this field going to get itself sorted for yet another green flag run. They were 3 wide through 1 and 2, but they managed to survive it. They're going to double it back out, and you can see this field starting to sort itself out down through 3 and 4. Daniel Eberhardt holds the inside of Kyle Trudell while they fan out 3 wide in behind them. Through the dogleg, the field starting to condense, and it's going to constrict back in 3 wide, 3 rows deep through turn number 1. This is getting all sorts of chaotic here in the back portion of the top 10. Thomas George going around in 1 and 2. Caution is out. George just avoids the pit barriers and goes into pit road.
He just about became a shish kebab on the pit road wall, but barely avoided it after he was aided around by the 77 car of James Pasquarella. Yellow is back out for the 6th time this afternoon, and To be honest, I thought it was coming for the 3 wide up the road. I was about to say, I don't know how long that's going to last. And let's take a look at what happened there. The 77 into the left rear of the 6.
It wasn't the only one there. You can see Shane Parrish really is what finished off Thomas George, but at that point the caution flag was already out, so it wouldn't have mattered. But that sent Thomas George into pit road, and instead of packing it out, he decided, nope, I'm going to come on down and I'm just going to take my time here in the pit road. Now, he is still, I believe, on the lead lap, which is the good news, because I don't believe he stopped in his pit box, which is a good thing for Thomas George, who obviously has had his black flags clear for an unsafe pit entry or pit entry while pit road was closed. I think that it's a bit of a safe deal to say there, considering I don't think he meant to go down there. I think it's worth noting.
Yeah, that'll be cleared for him. And interestingly enough, Nolan, I believe Thomas George claiming responsibility as well for the incident. Already going to be at the back of the field, so not going to be a huge loss for him. But obviously doesn't want to risk anything. Of course, if you don't claim an incident and you are found at fault later in the race, you're going to get twice as many penalty points. You're also going to be hit with a 5-point penalty. And now James Pasquarella is also claiming responsibility for the incident.
So who gets it then? I think that's going to be a bit of an interesting one. If it's a case of, 2 people tend to claim responsibility, who's going to get it? Obviously, Pasquarella is the only one that claimed it this time, but has that ever been a situation before? We've had 2 people claim it at the same time?
But believe that Thomas George, you're right, is asking for a black flag clear, not a caution claim, which is just a C in the chat. So Pasquarella will end up being the only driver to claim it. He will get the end of the longest line penalty. But in the instance where multiple drivers claim it, Nolan, it goes to the first driver who claimed it. You can also not change your mind. If you claim responsibility for an incident and then you look at the replay and say, yeah, wait a minute, I don't really think that was my fault, you cannot rescind it. So good clarification there that it is Pasquarella who claims it, not Thomas George. Again, he was asking for a black flag clear, not a caution claim. Pasquarella does claim it. He will instead be the one to get the end of the longest line to penalty. But yeah, it always goes to the first driver to claim it, and if you try to rescind it, you can't. You're stuck with it.
So it really is a sort of first come, first serve type of policy then.
Yeah, you want to certainly be sure, before you claim it. Again, that's where the honor system comes in, right? If you feel like it's close enough, then you don't need to. And again, it goes to review, Nolan. I can say, right, we've had 6 caution flags tonight. 5 of them have been claimed. The only incident that wasn't claimed was marked as a racing incident. So that is an option. Race control is not going to penalize somebody every single time. It can be a racing incident. It can be a connection issue. There are other things other than somebody always being at fault, but most of the time, everybody knows that at least one driver was the cause of that one, and in this case, Pasquarella owns up to it.
I do kind of like that, the fact that you'll get these drivers that will kind of take the responsibility for themselves, and they kind of recognize when it's their fault. It's something that sometimes you don't often see in other leagues, and it's something that we have had in the past, right? I mean, there was actually a good point in the LA Coliseum where you had about half of the cautions that were car-to-car contact. People decided not to claim them. Nobody really thought that they were at fault for any of those.
And it all comes down to, I think, maybe the lesser of 2 evils, right? Is it really worth it? Take the EOL, avoid the extra penalty point and point penalties, and move on. And maybe that's the decision there. As again, Kevin King is in control. He continues to be silky smooth on the restarts, as he'll even dive down to the apron to defend the top position. And here comes Jeremy Miller trying to get underneath the 88 of Andrew Freenosh.
Trying to get underneath. They're already 3 wide. Look at Trudell trying to find the high side. Brandon 6, thought about the middle. Look at Connor Horn diving to the inside. And Jeremy Miller, Eberhard gets set around, and he will save it up the hill in 3 and 4.
They were 3 wide with Horn down on the very inside, and it looked like just squeezed in the middle. There was the 13 of Miller. Daniel Eberhardt got tagged, but what a save it was for the number 90 Battle Beaver SK Sim Racing Mustang. All for nothing, though. Recce now behind in turns number 1 and 2. And Shane Parrish, one of the drivers involved, at lap number 70, and a couple of drivers not happy on the radio. Let's see what happened, and that was some pretty significant contact, and Pasquarella just missed the corner by a millennia.
And he's already taken responsibility for the incident as well. Now, the important thing to note here, Evan, is, of course, this is going to be his second incident. Wow, he even tried to turn down to avoid it, and just poor Ross Cato couldn't do anything about that one, but he actually stepped the back end out just to try and keep it out of Shane Parrish. Ross Cato obviously with nowhere to go, but that's the second incident for Pasquarella. So, correct if I'm wrong, but that means it's now one lap stop and hold, correct?
That is correct. So because he's claimed both, he has 1 penalty point from the first claimed caution. Because he claimed the second one, he will receive an additional 2 penalty points. So he's up to 3 total. And because it was a second claimed, it will be a -1 lap black flag penalty.
Starting to get a little bit physical out there. It's starting to get a little bit further up there in terms of the caution count. We are just about halfway, and actually, I think we're going to be halfway in actually about 6-7 laps or so here. And we're only 7 cautions in. This race, even despite all these yellows, is really flying by.
You're almost halfway home here in Phoenix, and again, that is still with the number of 7 caution flags in the first half of this race. So if we continue that trend, we're going to end up at about 14 or 15 total caution flags here on the night, but almost at halfway home. You know, there's not really a lot of attrition either, right? I mean, yeah, there's been lots of incidents, but of the 43 cars who started this race, 40 of them are still on track, 39 of which are still on the lead lap.
So what is going to happen now that we are getting into the second half? Because obviously the closer and closer you get to the end of a race, the more aggressive you expect drivers to be. And we've already been seeing that. I mean, in restarts past, you've been seeing the top 10 or so have been getting themselves single filed out relatively early on. They haven't had too many struggles trying to get themselves sorted, but it hasn't been the case these last few restarts. It's been getting up there, and now we'll be seeing what these drivers will be able to do, especially now that Kevin King no longer up there at the front of this field.
And remember the difference on the pit strategy with he and several other drivers opting to stay out means that they got cycled back in traffic. They now have fresh tires, but they are down 25th on back. So a lot of heavy hitters deep in the field now. Freenosh is back there, King, Eberhardt, Miller, Chambliss, all these big names on the way back. And again, they lost the race lead because they stayed out, others pitted. Those other cars had about a 36-lap tire advantage, right? Because they are pitting now in response to that, yeah, they've got better tires, but they've only got 13-lap better tires. The advantage is not as significant.
It's not a very significant advantage. You're absolutely correct, as we're 1 lap to green already. And all things considered, despite the scale of some of these accidents, you've still got what's going to be 38 cars on the racetrack. And I believe it is going to still be 37 of those on the lead lap. And majority of these incidents, only about 2 or 3 cars. So despite some of these being relatively far with the order, this field's been doing a great job making sure that the effects of these crashes are mitigated as much as possible.
Something also worth noting, Nolan, I mentioned that that's 4 total penalty points for James Pasquarella tonight, or 3, I should say. He had 1 coming into tonight, so he is at 4 total. Of course, you get to 6, you're parked for a race. So the 77, you need to be careful for the rest of the night. Let's see what the 67 of Connor Horn can do. It is his first restart in control of the field with Brandon 6 alongside. Green flag is back in the air. And look at all the drivers going way down to the apron, trying to make something to work with it. Everybody, so far, so good. Some 3 wide deeper back, but Horn clear for the lead. Tom Wetmore going to make a pass at Brandon 6. He'll take away second.
Top 3 trying to break clear. Jerem Wymus is working the inside of Kyle Trudell for 4th, trying to see if he can break clear. The Extreme Performance Motorsports number 48 Chevrolet is trying to work on his XPM teammate on the high side. Kyle Trudell, though, not letting him have it easy, though. So it seems like both of these drivers, despite being on the same team, Evan, not about to let each other off the hook. caution flag is out yet again, and this time it's David Kolb in his SimQ number 11 Toyota Camry.
And Cobb has already claimed responsibility for the incident after he ended up into the inside wall, just removed one lap before the restart. And what a weird snap. The car got a little bit loose through the dogleg, and when he corrected it, it pounded the outside wall. Chambliss just avoids a much larger accident, and that is caution flag number 8, the first for the 11 car.
You know what I think happened there? Because it was kind of straddling the apron, right? I think that's what the case was. He was kind of getting a little bit loose off the transitioning, because obviously you can see drivers that are, going down below that yellow line, but you don't have to see people trying to ride the line through the dog line. That's exactly what he did. And I think that's what got him loose, because it almost immediately after that, when the back end kicked out on him and he went up into the outside wall. So I think the transition kept him from getting fully sideways. And as soon as he got off the transition, that's when he realized just how loose he really was. Just overcorrected in a huge way into the outside wall. Once again, though, luckily, nobody getting into him, but Thomas George came a bit too close for comfort, I'd imagine.
A little bit tight there, and because we are at the halfway point of tonight's Phoenix 156, why not take a look top to bottom at our SK Sim Racing leaderboard and talk through the SK Sim Racing Midway Race Break. Connor Horn, your current race leader, ahead of Tom Wetmore in second, Brandon 6th and third, Jared Weinmaster 4th, and Kyle Trudell in P5. Chris Rabel, Michael Johnson, Sam Nieto, Nick Silver, and Cody Harris, your top 10.
Anthony DeBarro is currently in 11th place with Rhett McBride in 12th. Grant Davis will be sitting 13th with Tim Johnston in 14th. It's Joseph Tyson 15th with Brandon Bowie 16th. Kyle Kamer in 17th with one Michael Araya. Caught up in our very first yellow flag of the day. Moved his way back up to 18th for his after the turns Chevrolet. Sean Casto is 19th with a clean car still, along with Nick Cohan in 20th.
Then you got Eric Sanford 21st, and now 22nd for Dylan Parker. And then Fresh Tires, Kevin King 23rd with some ways to go. He's ahead of David Washington 24th, Andrew Freenosh 25th, Daniel Epperhart 26th, Jeremy Miller 27th, Thomas George 28th, Shane Parrish 29th, and Agado Phillip down in 30th.
And that will put one Dane Cruz up in the 31st position, I believe, and Shane Ewig is 32nd. Sean Kalist is 33rd. You've gotten yourself going to be that of, actually trying to get myself sorted here, because it looks like a good number of the cars in the 30s are actually down in pit road for the time being. So Sean Kalist in 34th, Chambliss 35th, Bradley Burke is 36th, David Kolb is just leaving pit road, he's in 37th with the last car on the lead lap. James Pascarella, Ross Cato, and Nicholas Barra all out of their cars. 5, 7, and 19 laps down in 37th, 38th, and 39th, and 40th, with Bunatsi Major, James Ross, and one William Schmidt to round out the field.
Look top to bottom at your SK Sim Racing Midway Race Break. SK Sim Racing is an iRacing team and a channel with an emphasis on reaching those who are new to the oval sim racing community. You can stay up to date with them online at facebook.com/SK Sim Racing, on Twitter at SK Sim Racing 1, and you can race what champions race by visiting them at sksimgear.com. David Cobb claimed responsibility for the incident. He's going to be all the way at the rear of the field for this restart, and it'll be the second to go in a row in which Connor Horn's in control. Now, Tom Wetmore was third on the last restart. He was able to use the inside lane to pass Brandon 6. Now it's a role reversal. Wetmore's P2 on the outside of the front row. 6 now in third to the inside of row 2. Watch if that number 66 Plan B Sales and Circle B Diecast Chevrolet can get back around in a fight for second. Connor Horn waiting to reach the blue of the Geico restart zone on the inside of the racetrack. He's off and away. Oh, a huge bobble for Brandon 6. Tons of tire spin. Checks up the inside.
So far, so good, though, and looks like Brandon 6 will mitigate the loss on that one, down to 4th place, but still holding strong, trying to catch up to Jared Weimisser in 3rd. He's done so nicely, so great recovery from Brandon 6 to get that, keeping Rio number 66 Chevrolet back on the way as quick as he possibly can, while they're double file like it's a high-speed pace lap right behind him.
Yeah, still lost some time, but certainly could have been a whole lot worse. And kudos to the drivers behind him as well for not stacking everybody up and running through his machine. So 6 bobbles, but stays in the top 4. That means that Wetmore hangs on to second. And now Jaron Winemaster at a race high P3 in his number 48 Extreme Performance Motorsports Chevrolet up in the front of the field. There's some 3 wide back in traffic, couple of close calls. So far, we hang on with 74 laps to go in the desert, and Wetmore now is catching Connor Horn in a battle for the race lead up front.
Connor Horn, I find, is a bit good off these restarts, but he is not able to really pull together a run in the medium pace. That is where James Wetmore really comes in, as Connor Horn misses the bottom in 3 and 4. He's got to check up to avoid getting into the outside wall. That once again just drags Tom Wetmore in, who is all over the number 67 Chevrolet, as Wetmore will continue trying to find his way through. And it's a real gang of Chevys up in front. You've got Chevrolets first, second, third, and fourth, then also in 6th.
And look at the battle now for third. Brandon 6 wants to get that spot back. He's trying to get underneath Jaron Winemaster. 48's going to leave the bottom open. Remember, the outside has been pretty successful this evening, but I think of these 2, Brandon 6 might be a little bit faster at the moment, so we'll see how that plays out with him being stuck on the bottom. Rabel's right there in 5th. Don't count him out. Kyle Trudell has turned his fortunes after being on the wrong side of some pit strategy earlier. He's the biggest mover, plus 31 spots right now, as he sits in the number 6 spot under fire from Nieto. Tons of action inside of the top 5. 6 just about put Winemaster in the fence at the start-finish line as they continue to go at it. Oh, and another big slide for 6. Winemaster hits the eject button to avoid him. A great job to give 6 some space to recover, but it's going to slow it all down. And here we go now. 3 wide for P7.
Best part about all of that, Winemaster didn't even lose a spot, and he held on to 3rd. Still into abreast, trying for 3. Oh, contact! Pascarella getting into it with Cody Harris. They both slam the outside wall. Now down to the inside. No caution yet. All 3 cars sliding. They will all save it. And no yellow flag. We keep it green. That all stemmed when it was Anthony DeBarro, that got into Cody Harris.
And there was a lot of beating and banging, but no cars went all the way around, so we stay green after a couple of hits there. A very good job by Cody Harris and company to hang on to those race cars, and we keep on trucking. So because of that, there's another look at the slide. Harris still hasn't saved it. Now he's got it on the exit at turn number 4, Nolan. And again, remember, sometimes even if iRacing doesn't throw the yellow, if there are 3 or more drivers involved in an accident, race control can throw the caution flag. In that instance, none of those 3 drivers went all the way around, so we will stay green. And now look at the huge advantage your top 2 have after all that chaos. They're about 0.8 of a second up on P3.
Tell you what, that's one thing that these top 2 are not going to be complaining about with all of that chaos that just took place behind. They have no need to worry about any of that. They can just focus on running their own race up in front. It looks like a good chunk of the field has gotten themselves single filed out now for really the first time all day long. And then you have to wonder, will this be the one? Will this be where we go green flag racing for a good chunk of this race? Still got Daniel Eberhard looking to work the inside line on the number 24, or Grant Davis through the middle of the turns 1 and 2. But you've got yourself more and more drivers trying to sort themselves out. How about right on board with Michael Araya in the number 44 Flat Out Motorsports Chevrolet?
You hear how patient he's got to be there. And also, that back end stepped out on him coming off of turn 2, and that's the 52 of Casto to his outside. So, I mean, he is having to be very delicate getting it back on the gas because the back end of the race car is almost turning with that throttle a little bit with all of the off-throttle time. Some 158 miles an hour into the turn. This car is going to slow all the way down to 102, almost into the double digits. So 60 miles an hour a difference, corner in and corner off.
Really shows how much power these cars have when you really look to put the foot down. Coming around through some of these corners, and it shows just how good the brakes can be on them as well, that you can slow down in such a short amount of time. Now, obviously, those are words that I'm going to be eating when we get around to a road course race with actual hairpins in just a week from now. But when you look at oval racing cars, still some of the best brakes you could possibly find out there in the business.
It certainly is. Remember last time we were here at Phoenix as well in the Gen 6 car, it was a 750 horsepower package. So this is actually down on horsepower what we saw last year with this 670 package. But of course, it is a totally different race car, Nolan, and I think still proving tonight here in the sim to be very difficult to drive. As you're watching the 2 of Sam Nieto fight with the 66 of Brandon 6. That battle is for 4th and 5th position right now. Rabel, Johnson, and company all watching on as that 2 of Nieto looking to break through. He's been in a couple of these battles tonight, has just been looking for a little bit more speed to take that step into the top 3, and he may have the upper hand here on 6 now.
Oh, pushing up off the bottom lane. Brandon 6 not giving him a whole lot of room to work with there, and that will allow for the Keeping It Real 66 Chevrolet to keep up on the high lane through the back straightaway down for turn 3. Sam Nieto now looking to do some of the pinching himself, forcing Brandon 6 up as Nieto tries to work that Red Bull Ford Mustang down in the turn number 1, trying to push his way up into 4th place. Push up a bit more that time and nearly gets into the quarter panel.
Another close call, another avoidance as we close in on lap number 100 here at Phoenix. All of this battling is only allowing Horn, Wetmore, Wandaster to pull further and further away, and the onboard shot from Chris Rabel illustrates it well. They're side by side in front of him, and you can see those 3 race leaders pulling away out in front. The other thing to keep in mind is that 2 car goes way deep into 1 and 2 is the gears, Nolan. You could see it on the digital dash, downshifting in the corners between 4 and 5.
And that does give you a little bit of more breathing room to work with on the accelerators. You saw a bit of a bumper that time to Sam Nieto. Brandon 6 starting to think about the bump and run. He followed Nieto up high when Nieto overshot 1 and 2, and then almost nudged him out of the way in turn number 3. So these drivers starting to get a little bit more hectic out there with each other. But you mentioned, of course, the downshifting these drivers are doing to the corners. That allows for them to get on the accelerator a little bit more aggressively on corner exit. And obviously, those extra couple miles an hour that you'll be able to get could be the huge difference maker when it comes around to the checkered flag.
And now that they've single filed out for 4th position on back, does anybody here have the speed to take the next step? Let's not forget the different fuel strategies, different tire strategies happening, and it's a great transition to the battle you see right there for 9th and 10th position. Remember Kevin King, Andrew Freenosh, all of these drivers came down to the pit lane to get fresh tires after they ended up on the back foot. They dropped way down in the running order. They have slowly and methodically been picking their way through the field on 12-lap better tires. King spearheading that effort in 9th. Freenosh also on the fresher tires in 10th. Daniel Eberhardt a little bit further on back in P12. They are, Nolan, the best cars on track. The question is, can they get to the race leaders? They have to make up 3.2 seconds of time right now, but they also have to deal with all of these other battles happening around them.
There you can see Kyle Trudell, Daniel Eberhardt, as well as the number 34 car, Brandon Bowie, in the thick of this, on board with Sean Casto. It's a little bit hectic still, deeper in the midfield for these battles between 10th and about 20th place as Casto Gonna send one up the inside of Kyle Trudell. Keeps it pinned to the bottom though, so an excellent overtake there for Sean Castro. He'll push up, get clear of Kyle Trudell. Just behind him, you've got Harris and Lariah looking to do battle as well, as Will Trudell actually maybe look to work the high side here through 1 and 2. I thought he might be able to carry some momentum around. Doesn't look like he'll be able to. One driver who does carry the momentum, Lariah outside of Harris.
And Mike Lariah is somebody else who has been looking for more tonight and has had moments that have looked very good, but despite starting in third, no better than 16th and now 15th position back in traffic. So he's got a little bit of work to do. Cody Harris has been involved in an incident, Nolan, nearly been involved in at least 1 or 2 more, and we just saw him racket on the apron. He's trying to climb his way back into the top 20. A good bounce back for him, and he'll get to the outside of Lariah to challenge for position number 16 here as they go back off into 3 and 4. Up the road, you got the likes of the 4 of Silver, the 90 of Eberhardt, the 5 of Tice doing battle. It's all in the mid-pack as your race leaders are the most spread out we've seen so far tonight.
Lariah pushing up off of the apron again, almost getting into Cody Harris. You can see Kyle Trudell holding tough in his very chrome Extreme Performance Motorsports number 7 Chevrolet, trying to just keep Cody Harris at bay. Harris, I imagine, though, having to worry more about defense from Michael Lariah. Is Lariah going to pick up yet another spot? That puts him now 16th place on the boards. So still looking set to rise through this field as we get closer and closer towards the end of this race. You've also got those drivers still looking to battle their way up into the top 10. Among them, Daniel Eberhardt trying to get past Nick Silver, trying to put his SK Sim Racing number 94 Mustang up into the top 10. And he'll do that by clearing Silver out of 4.
It's around Silver off of turn number 4, so Daniel Eberhardt now back in line with the other drivers on the fresh tires, riding behind Eberhardt, or riding behind Freeneich, I should say, is Eberhardt, who's also running behind Kevin King, but I don't think Daniel Eberhardt is quite content here. The greatest battle at RSR may have another chapter here tonight. Eberhardt and Freeneich. How many times have we seen these two fight for race wins? Right now, they're scrapping it out for P9 and 10 as Kevin King leads the way. Again, they're the faster cars, certainly, than the people up the road, Nolan, but no more than, what, a dozen laps ago, I said, yeah, it's going to be tricky because they're 3.2 seconds off of the race leader. Even with, I think, being a faster race car, they're now 3.8 seconds off of the race leader. It takes time to pick your way through traffic. You are slower than your optimum lap speed when you're passing cars and you're working through traffic, and this is hindering their progress forward as Andrew Freeneich wants to make a challenge on King, looking to the inside for P8, and Kevin King leaves him about a half a lane there, trying to bait the 88 to thinking, do you really want to go there? But now they'll fight down the back straightaway. Outside gets the better run.
And that's only going to leave Freeneich under fire now for Daniel Eberhardt, but it will be Freeneich with the advantage on corner entry as the boosted number 31 Team Chevrolet powers around the outside line. Freeneich goes way below the dogleg just to try to get himself sorted, pushing up the hill in 1 and 2. Kevin King forced to come a bit higher up off the corner than I think he might have liked, but Freeneich still going to be even at the door as they enter turn number 3.
Backing down into turn number 3. Freeneich starting to get a nose in front. Kevin King certainly not going to make this one easy, and the biggest that I'm seeing here is Kevin King is perfect in his positioning. He gives Andrew Freeneich just enough room to have a lane, but he doesn't give him anything extra, and now they're fighting against each other, right? There's no reason, Olin, that Andrew should say, listen, I'm not going to try to pass you. Let's try to work through the field. Would it be maybe the smart long-term goal? Sure. Is that what a race car driver is going to do? No. And the harder they fight amongst each other right now in that group of 3, the more they're going to eat away at their tire advantage, and the more hope they're going to give to the drivers in the top 8.
And look at Daniel Eberhardt now taking the charge of the outside line of Kevin King. He got clear Freeneich high side. He's looking to do the same on Kevin King now. And actually, it looks like Freeneich might be set to follow him. He sees what Eberhardt's doing, wants a piece of it. But Kevin King slams the door shut before Freeneich can get the nose in. They were so busy battling each other, they didn't even notice the SK Sim Racing driver looking to make that move on the high side.
What was smart by Daniel, let them fight it out amongst themselves, and he just strolls his way through. Less than 45 laps to go here in Phoenix, and Daniel Eberhardt now all the way clear, courtesy of the outside as Freenosh gives a shot to the rear end there of Kevin King. King got a little bit loose. Freenosh gave him a bump. That is a rare moment, I think, of some frustration. And of Andrew Freenosh giving a bit of a shot to Kevin King there. And now that Daniel Eberhardt's got around them, he is moving. Just made a pass on Brandon 6. So Eberhardt's up to 7th, and he is leaving Kevin King and Andrew Freenosh in the dust.
This is just absolutely incredible race we're starting to see here as Eberhardt is broken past Brandon 6 now. Kevin King and Freenosh still too busy battling with each other. Now Kevin King is going to get another shot. Freenosh wants to find a way through. Nick Silver this time got a bit checked up in that scrap as well, and actually so did Brandon Bowie. So it's starting to even impact other drivers here, and that has only allowed Kevin King to pull a little bit further ahead. You can also see Daniel Eberhardt just up the road, trying to make ground on Michael Johnson as well. Looks like this battle between Freenosh and King will settle down for a moment. There's about 4 car lengths in between them now. I think that last hit that Freenosh gave to Kevin King was the boost that King needed to finally break away from him.
Yeah, he's really used this as an opportunity to set sail, and you know, Brandon 6 still not under fire. Kevin King and Andrew Freenosh seemingly unable to improve on their current standing of 9th and 10th in the running order. And Daniel Eberhardt almost clear. Michael Johnson going to fight back and not make it easy on Daniel Eberhardt, but now back off it into 3 and 4. Eberhardt, another position gained up to P6, and that all-important interval, right, from 3.2 all the way up to 3.8 is now just 2.3 seconds between Daniel Eberhardt and race leader Connor Horn. Certainly plausible for the Donnies, certainly a difficult task, yes. You can see Connor Horn. Horn is a half a second ahead of the fighting behind him. Sam Nieto just now made a pass on Tom Wetmore for second.
Wouldn't be the first time we've seen Daniel Eberhardt do a very difficult task, even this season even. As we can see the top 5 all starting to battle amongst each other, and they have been able to break away by quite a ways. The next car behind this top 5 grouping is going to be Daniel Eberhardt. You can see now even started to break clear of the second pack. Eberhardt closing just a little bit every single lap. It's only going to be a matter of time now before Eberhardt is right up with them, making it a 6-car scrap for the race lead in the closing laps as we're under 40 to go.
Inside of 40 laps to go on the longest run of the afternoon now since our last caution flag at lap number 75. Do we get the distance? Can Eberhardt on the fresh rubber this deep into a run maintain his advantage? Last lap, a 29.144 for Daniel Eberhardt. He was, again, the fastest car on the racetrack. Also, a battle going on, Nolan, for the most laps led. Kevin King's got it with 68 so far. Connor Horn would need to lead 22 of the final 37 laps of this race to secure an additional bonus point for the most laps led. But with the way Sam Nieto's been driving the last 5 laps, I'm not sure he'll make it that far, because Nieto has also turned up the wick since he made that pass on Tom Wetmore and is now applying pressure to the 67 in the race lead.
It was 3.5 tenths a couple of laps ago. That is down to under a quarter of a second now, and it is just continuing to shrink on in. Sam Nieto is ready to pounce in the run for the race lead, down to a 10.5 now between these two drivers. Sam Nieto not letting Connor Horn breathe at the moment, right on the rear bumper, the number 67 Chevrolet. What can Nieto do? Does he have what it takes to go for the race lead? Sends it into turn 1 that time. Pushes up it as a result. But I think that's part of his strategy to put the pressure on, telling him he's there. Connor Horn's got to start going on the defensive.
And you can see Sam Nieto's onboard perspective as he monitors up front to see where he could find an opportunity. Is he going to be the one applying the pressure, or does he feel like speed-wise Connor Horn is coming back to him? You got a lot of time to work with. Yes, we're inside of the final 40, but don't make it feel like you're rushed. You have ample time to execute. You do not need to force the issue right now. There is tons of time left to be methodical about this. It also means there's tons of times for the drivers behind to catch up, because the 90 of Daniel Eberhardt has caught the traffic behind that he needs to clear to join the battle for the race lead. Eberhardt looking to the outside of Rabels, 29. You can see them back there, the 5th and 6th cars in this lead group. And only took one corner. Eberhardt makes the pass. Now he's up to 5th and is within now 1 second of the top spot.
This is a bit of a race at the moment. Eberhardt is not going to be able to get the most laps led, so it is a race to see whether Connor Horn can potentially lead the most laps before Eberhardt gets to him, because if Nieto doesn't get by Horn for the race lead, at this rate, Daniel Eberhardt certainly will, and he has got the time to make it work, unless guys behind it like Jaron Weimaster and Tom Wetmore and even San Nieto can put one heck of a defense up against Daniel Eberhardt to keep Connor Horn safe up in the race lead. And how about this? Dylan Parker coming into the pit lane. You reckon maybe some drivers not quite safe on fuel as you might have thought?
It would be a long road for the drivers who pitted prior, right? So for Kevin King, for Daniel Eberhardt, for those drivers, they pitted 54 laps ago. They would have to go a total of 85 laps to the end of this race on fuel. For the drivers who, of course, pitted the yellow previous to that, instead of going 85 Nolan, they would have to do 97.
It's a long way to go on one tank of fuel, especially since, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have limited tanks, I believe. What is it, 75%?
I think it's 100%, but I don't know as well. You know, I think these are bigger fuel cells in the next-gen car. I don't know the exact measurement, but I believe they are slightly larger than what we saw in the Gen 6. So because of that, you know, a lot of the time when we're thinking, you know, hey, what's the fuel like? I don't know until we do a full race, right? Because we don't know what that additional tolerance is.
It's always a mystery when you get into a new car like this. It's always a huge question as to how long can you actually stretch it on one tank of fuel. Doesn't seem like some drivers were able to stretch it quite as long as they might have liked. And 97 laps on one tank for some of the guys that pitted a while ago, I'm willing to bet that that's a bit too far to make it. Daniel Eberhardt makes the dive on Tom Wetmore, goes up into third.
And now Daniel Eberhardt one step closer. And what's so impressive about this run, of course, is that it was King and Freenosh who spearheaded this effort, right? King and Freenosh were, for the longest point in this run, the lead cars on that fuel strategy, on that tire strategy, and it was Eberhardt biding his time, right? They started to fight each other. He made a pass on him, and it made it look very easy. But the most impressive part is that Eberhardt can do almost anything with that race car right now. He's made passes high. He's made passes low, and none of them have gone more than a lap. It's not a long, strung-out battle. Eberhardt sets it up, puts it in position, and executes, and gets the job done. And I would be sweating if I'm San Nieto and Connor Horn, because that 90 is going to get to you. And I mentioned when, you know, it was Nieto trying to get the Horn, you got a long ways to go in this race. Don't worry. Well, the flip side of that was it's a lot of laps for Daniel Eberhardt to work with. You still have to hold him off for 27 more laps, and that is a tall, tall order. You're on board with the car in third. You see second and first immediately in front of him, but on the horizon, lap traffic, which could be a factor later in this run.
Haven't seen lap traffic play a big role in how this race is played out yet. We haven't gotten a green flag run long enough for us to be able to get to that point. Starting to get there now, though. The first car in line will be Matthew Mara, along with Bradley Burke. Well, they'll have to sort their way through. I don't think they're going to catch them, though, until we're about another maybe 5-10 laps on the road, as David Washington to the number 98 car now down and into pit road. So a couple of more drivers not safe on the fuel tanks.
We saw Pasquarella down, Dylan Parker's been in, you just saw David Washington, Anthony DeBarro now also coming down pit road. These are all drivers who have been out on the longer pit strategy, the same strategy that Horn and Nieto are on. But keep that in mind, that 12-lap difference could be big, Nolan. Of course, you picked up on this right when they came in, the question of, are we thinking fuel-wise? And there's a chance that that difference could be a game changer. And if you're Eberhard, if you know you're good on fuel and maybe you're assuming Horn and Nieto aren't, if other drivers on their same strategy are coming in, do you even fight them? Right? Do you just kind of wait, keep the pressure on them, don't let them save, and wait for them to bow out? I mean, that's all going to depend on if Eberhard's team is confident in the fact that maybe Horn and Nieto are short, if they're confident to the opposite, if they think that 67 and the 2 are going to be able to make it, then obviously Eberhard's going to force the issue here. But, I mean, there's a very serious chance that those two cars leading this race right now can't go the 23 laps that we have left.
You saw just how close that last time by that San Nieto got into the back bumper of Connor Horn. This is on board with that back bumper on the rear view camera, and you can see just how much pressure is being applied. And even looking high, you can see Daniel Eberhard now as well, trying to put some more pressure on San Nieto. Now here's what I'm wondering if he's going to do here. It's also a question of tires, right? How much can you make it last on the tires? I wonder if he's going to try to pressure Nieto into trying to go for the pass and then take him 3 wide to go for the 2-for-1 special.
On board with Daniel Eberhard riding in the number 3 position right now, looking to return to victory lane with the team. Won the season opener at Daytona International Speedway back on February the 21st. Again, a win for all intents and purposes guarantees you a spot in the playoffs, but there are more regular season races than 16 playoff spots. There's a chance, an off chance, that we could get more than 16 winners, and a driver with a win would be sent home. The only way to guarantee is to get 2, and now Nieto gets loose into 3 and 4, slides up and out of the way of the 90, and now Daniel Eberhard 1 spot away, 20 laps to go in Phoenix.
It wasn't a very big mistake. It was just the smallest of twitches. He didn't even really have to count his steer. He just had to straighten the wheel up to save the car. But that is all it takes, because that car just pushed way wide. And now, nothing stands between Connor Horn and Daniel Eberhard. 19 laps to go. This time by, you look on board of the Smith Sim Racing number 67 Chevrolet, and now aboard Eberhard, as Eberhard desperately tries to reel in one Connor Horn just up the road. Does he have anything for the number 67 up in front?
Caution! It does not matter. A yellow on the cusp of maybe a race-signing pit strategy call. It is Dylan Parker on the front straightaway, and this race is not done yet, and you see it there. Kalis gets loose across the stripe, and Dylan Parker, wrong spot at the wrong time.
That is unfortunate for Kyle Camber and Dylan Parker. Just an innocent bystander there. And destroy the motor on Dylan Parker's car as well. He had just come into pit road a little while ago as well. And here we go. Pit stops underway for just what everybody had imagined in the top grouping. Horn, Eberhard, Nieto, and more all into pit road. The first car to see out is only lap traffic. Looks like everybody's going to be coming in this time by, just to make sure you're safe.
It was a green flag run, 67 laps long, but now drivers are down pit road, and the fuel strategy no longer matters. It's going to come down to executing on pit road, and everyone's going to have an equal opportunity, equal tires to try to win this race. Connor Horn comes in as the race, and everybody misses his pit stall. Connor Horn overshoots the box, and that will be devastating for the driver of the 67. He will still get 4 tires serviced, but look at all the positions that Connor Horn has lost, and it falls apart, and the race lead off of pit road goes to Brandon 6 on 2 right side tires only.
That puzzles me as to how Connor Horn managed to miss that pit box there, because you looked at Chris Ramel. It was actually a fantastic shot. We had one that overlooked a good number of spots. Rabel was actually even further up than he was, and Rabel got in his pit box just fine and underwent service, and Connor Horn almost bang in the middle of the two lines. So that puzzles me as to how he managed to miss the pit box. I wonder if maybe he was too far over to one side and had to readjust.
And it was a huge blow for Connor Horn, who just now is exiting pit road. And after that, Connor Horn was just discussing now over the radio that he was in fifth gear. We talked about some of the shifting. Let's take a look at the box first.
The white lines are what set the box.
Yeah, it's weird and it's tricky, because if you zoom out, you can see, and it looked like he was all right, but of course, you do want to be central. I mean, you can't pit in that whole white area, right? It is a little bit more sensitive here on the sim, and that's tough, man. I mean, it didn't look like he blew it by much. And unfortunately for him, Connor Horn's going to go from leading this race to riding in 28th position. We saw that the shifting between 4th and 5th was popular early in the race. Nolan Connor Horn said over the radio under the yellow flag there that he was in 5th the whole time in an attempt to save fuel to get to the end of the race. And now Brandon 6 on 2 tires has gone to the race lead. He went right sides only. Everybody else behind him going to be on 4. That includes Sam Nieto, who's going to be on the outside of the front row, right alongside him.
Tell you what, that will certainly explain as to why he was that much slower than everybody else behind him. Being in 5th gear is not going to help you out too much, especially since this is a pretty 4th gear racetrack, right? You have a lot of drivers that will try to use 5th gear at all the setups, on all the tracks, as it is, of course, a high gear. But there are some tracks like Phoenix where you'll be using 4th gear more often than not.
And now, tires, fuel, no longer questions. It's all about a 14-lap dash to the end. Brandon 6, the only one who gambled. What can he do on 2? Or are the drivers with 4 fresh ones going to jump all over him? Green flag back in the air. 14 laps to go in Phoenix.
6 pulls up and clears. 3 wide into turn number 1. Trouble behind. Wymaster's going around. So is Michael Johnson. The field is going to get collected in this one. Lariah goes around. They're wrecking behind. It's 2 separate crashes to put us under caution number 10 of the day. One of them starting off well to the front of the order with the number 39 car. The other one, I think, a product of drivers trying to check up for the incident up in front, and that was all kicked off by, I believe it was the 46 car up the road.
And you can see Johnson on the inside into the corner. The contact starts above him. Just a couple of drivers running out of room, and Michael Johnson gets turned around. A late tag there on the 44, and man, that snowballed into something much larger than it initially was.
And it wasn't even the 49 car or the 46 car, Dane Cruz, that kicked off the whole second. It was actually Jimmy Miller who got up and punted Nick Cohen to the outside while Cohen spun, and that is what really collected everybody out of the crash, including Agnell Phillip, who just, again, cannot catch a break to save his life. I think McBride might have gotten a piece of it. Chambliss was in it. DeBarra was there. Oh boy, it just doesn't end. Cautions breed cautions, and Phoenix is a real product of that.
It is a tough break and maybe a saving grace for Brandon 6, right? I mean, I think we all realize Brandon 6 is going to be hard-pressed here on the 2 tires, right? It's not like the lefts are a little bit old. They're really old. But what this yellow does is takes away 4 or 5 laps of green flag racing that would have otherwise given those drivers an opportunity to pass him. Let's take a look at the midfield to Nick Cohan, and you can see there Miller, who jumps up trying to, I don't know if he was spooked by the incident, if he lifted and got loose, but I mean, you can see how that one incident really kind of turned into 2 or 3.
So would you call that the big one? Because it's a bit of a sort of for me, right? I mean, overall, it was about 12 cars collected, but the cause of each incident, I would dare to say, were unrelated.
Yeah, it is strange, and I think certainly the incident comes out for the initial contact into 3 wide. Obviously, I think the yellow flag actually was displayed before those guys really started stacking up on each other. But it is almost like several different incidents. But I think the lead cause is if those cars don't start stacking up into 3 wide, whatever happened behind likely doesn't happen, at least not at that point in the corner.
Very weird incident, and this has been a night for relatively strange incidents, and a majority of them the result of car to car, though you have gotten the occasional crash caused by somebody just kind of going around all by themselves. Usually more of a problem in turn number 4 than it is in turn number 2. You'd think it'd be more of an issue in turn 2 because it is a little bit of a flatter surface over in turn 2, so it's easier to spin the tires up. But Phoenix seems to be the exception for that one. Turn 4 seems to be the trouble spot. I imagine more because you're immediately turning left anyway, right out of the corner to aim for the dogleg.
And speaking of that dogleg, there was also a penalty issued on the most recent restart. Michael Johnson, who was involved in the incident anyways, Nolan, was given an end of the longest line penalty for a lane change violation. I mentioned earlier in the race show you can't change lines before the start-finish line. It can be tempting because of that dogleg to do so before the start-finish. Drivers on the bottom, though, cannot go to the apron before the start-finish. That counts as a lane change violation, and he was busted for that. So, you know, the damage, the big hurt there for Michael Johnson. Certainly didn't want to be involved in the incident, but the real story is, you know, before that contact happened, he restarted in 8th position. He's now riding in 31st, courtesy of an EOL and with damage.
It's a massive shame for some of those drivers who are caught in the back. For Michael Johnson, the EOL penalty really doesn't even affect him all that much because, as you mentioned, at the back anyway due to the incidents. But where he gets set to come back, green flag racing, 9 laps to go. Do we go green to the end? I'm honestly willing to say of it, I don't think we will. Green flag going to be coming out this time by. 6 is off and away.
9 laps to go in Phoenix. It's another good jump for Brandon 6 on the inside line. Here comes Nieto, bringing up the bottom. Going to get alongside the domination of Daniel Eberhard. Eberhard drives it in deep in turns 1 and 2. Washes up. There's contact. Eberhard slides. Nieto spins. It is a huge pileup as one car barrel rolls on the back straightaway. And that is the entire field. And another yellow flies.
That's not even an exaggeration. That literally was the entire field except for one driver, the one driver that was in front of the whole mess. I have to be honest, I've seen a couple of really major crashes where you see the tracks get bottlenecked. That's typically at road courses, though. This is the biggest single incident I've ever seen in oval racing in the 3 or so years that I've been doing this. It was Brandon Bowie that got kicked up and over. He went flipping over Andrew Freenach in a couple of different cars, and it was also Chris Rabel that got up and on his side in the middle of this, and that's a hard shot as well for one driver on the outside line, and there goes Bowie up and over, and everyone just can't slow down and just gets right into it.
Well, you had asked on the last yellow, Nolan, could we call that the big one? I think it's safe that we formally held that title for this one, because that is as big of a wreck as you will ever see at Phoenix Raceway. I mean, the entire racetrack was blocked, and that is heavy damage with a lot of drivers. The one who was barrel rolling was the number 34 machine. Is going to be interested what Brandon DeBowie has got to say about that one on his next episode of Life of a Sim Racer. His digital motorsports machine up and over several times in front of the field. Wetmore destroyed as well, and surprise, Nolan, when the field wrecks like that, there's a lot of angry radio chatter. Nobody can seem to agree on what caused that one.
That was honestly one of the biggest moments I've ever had, and I was looking through my own footage here, right? I mean, to try to find the first car that got through there with absolutely no contact with anything else. It was Bradley Burke, who was in 31st place at the top of the lap, and he had to stop for several seconds just to wait for a gap to open up. There you see the look on board the pit wall, and drivers just slowly start to trickle their way through. A couple of other drivers try to reverse out, but obviously that doesn't help them out as any. That just clogs the track further.
For the 11th caution flag of the afternoon, and I think we saved the biggest one for last. A absolutely mammoth pileup here at Phoenix, and now what's left of the battle for the race win? Of course, we know that Brandon 6 was going to be at a disadvantage with just the 2 tires, Nolan. I don't know if there's a clean race car behind him to battle against. Rabel's got no hood. I guess maybe Jeremy Miller is okay. Trudell and Kolb okay, but I mean, most of the cars in the top 10 are heavily damaged.
I am looking through the entire running order right now from start to finish, and I have to be honest, he is the last clean car in this field. Not a single driver out there is without damage, except for Brandon 6. Allworth Rhett McBride, who was right in the thick of this. You can see the track starting to clog. He starts to get on the binders. Nick Silver cuts across his line, and he will just slowly start trying to mosey his way on through, just really tiptoeing over a minefield of not just debris, cars in general strewn around the racetrack.
And now we see if there's anybody who can challenge the 66 of Brandon 6. There is several drivers with some minor damage. I mean, Miller's got a chance. Trudell maybe. Kolb maybe, but there's a lot of heavily damaged cars. That means it's going to be sloppy in the midfield as we try to finish this Phoenix 156 in regulation. Pace cars off. Watch for the lane changes on the restart as Brandon 6 is in control. Green flag flies. 4 laps to go.
4 to go. Brandon 6 has no competition. They're wrecking deeper in the field. They managed to save it, though. It was the number 32 car that went around, and he's going to go around again. In the back, that was Shane Ewan. That got spun not once, but twice. First was by Sam Miata, the second time all by himself. Field is clean, though, otherwise. Down to Max Braley. They're still doing it out as damaged cars trying to get on one another, and they're wrecking again in turn number 3, and it's another big crash, this time into the outside wall. Matthew Moore gets into it. That'll be green white checker number 1. You got a 4-5 car pile up to start the lap, and then there was a second one with Kyle Trudell right at the head. Michael Johnson takes responsibility for the wreck.
I mean, we knew that there was going to be a lot of stacking up in traffic and questioned if it was going to get to the end. The race leaders were fine, but it was just too many cars, different pace, out of control, slipping and sliding, and you can see Johnson looking to the bottom. I mean, there might have been a little bit of left movement there from Matt Mara, but I think at this point in the race, you're in the your 17th, 18th spot. Johnson's frustrated because, remember, he got the DOL that took him out of a top 10 spot, probably driving a little bit too aggressively there, and just absolutely sent Mara and then himself.
He even give it a little bit of a bunny hop back up onto the track and into the outside wall. So green-white checkered attempt number 1 then from the Phoenix Raceway and the Phoenix 156. To say that this race has just been kicked up in overdrive is a bit of an understatement. Does anybody have a taste to challenge Brandon 6? The closest driver, I'd say, will be Jeremy Miller, who is the only car who you could consider to have just a scuff as opposed to a missing body panel.
Let's take another look at what happened going off it into turns number 3 to 4 from Kyle Trudell's perspective. Oh, a little bit more. A 7 also turned around at the same time.
Good job on the field, though, to get around, and that could have been so much worse, especially since that was up in the top 5.
Seems like every time we look at an incident, the longer you look, the more you find at Phoenix. I mean, listen, this race started with lots of caution flags. Of course, we had a total of 8 in the opening 75, Nolan, but then we went 67 laps without one. Long green flag stretch. Fuel was a concern. Fuel saving was happening, but it really turned into a strategy kind of race. And then at the end, I think obviously exemplified by that huge pile up off of turn 2, but you know, I think no matter what car, what track, you get a late race restart, and there's not going to be any give, all take, and that's what you get is a little bit of a demo derby.
It kind of revisiting demo derbies and that really huge 30-car pileup we saw just a few laps ago. And this is something that I'm just really clicking in with now. Do you know what that reminds me of the most? The Aaron's 312 huge one at Talladega Superspeedway in 2002, the one where Rusty Wallace went tumbling end over end down the back straightaway. That is honestly right down to the car flipping over. That's what that wreck kind of looked like. You got a couple of cars to go sideways and everyone just piles in.
Doesn't it say something when the Phoenix wreck reminds you of a Talladega wreck? I think
Right?
we've seen some track blockers in the past. Certainly Dover has seen its fair share of them over the years. A very tight, self-cleaning track, but when you get a lot of cars spun around, you run out of options. Listen, I mentioned earlier that this version of Phoenix is a lot wider than it used to be, right? Back straightaways wider. Turn 3 and 4 down here, which is now 1 and 2 wide because the grass is all gone on the bottom. But that backstretch, what used to be the front straightaway, is still super tight. And it just happens that that's where the incident kicked off. And, I mean, there were 0 escape routes for drivers to be able to avoid that one. So this race will not end in regulation. The Phoenix 156 turns into at least the Phoenix 159 as we get set for our first attempt at a green-white checker overtime restart. The pace car is off and in, and Brandon 6 is in control on the bottom, waiting until they hit the Geico restart zone. Off and away, 2 laps to go in Phoenix.
Just got to make it 1 mile, and then this race will be official, but you've still got damaged cars trying to fight their way through to overtake some of those damaged cars in just the last 2 miles of this 156-mile event. Down the back straightaway for the penultimate time today. They scramble on the backstretch, but Brandon 6 is still clear as they enter turn number 3.
Still clear as they look for the white flag. Do they get there? No, they do not. They were feet away from making this race official, and they crash again, and Brandon 6 cannot believe it. He was coming off of 4 under the flag stand. Here's the touch. Looks like the 6 gets into the 15, and if it was maybe 2 seconds later, we would have had the white.
And it was you saw Thomas George, the one that got into Rhett McBride, and Thomas George actually got tight in the corner. It was very, very faint, but there was the very smallest of tire lockups right before contact was made as George made an effort to try to keep it out of McBride, but didn't quite get there. And you mentioned it, just feet away. I was watching him coming around. As he was crossing the start-finish line, the yellow lights flicked on, and the pace car started rolling onto the racetrack. So Brandon 6 going to have to wait just a little bit longer. And he doesn't like this, right? Because that is one more time that Jimmy Miller can try to get the drop on him on the restart.
And it was, I mean, we've seen in the past that margin for error for the caution lights here on the sim is pretty ruthless. And I'm willing to bet if you slowed it down, it might be an inch. I mean, I'm looking at one frame, Nolan, where he's almost at the stripe and it's green, and then the next frame he's on it and it's yellow. And of course, it's very easy to tell when the caution lights come on here at Phoenix because of the big cactus at the start-finish line. You literally cannot get any closer than that.
13th caution. Will this be lucky number 13, where we see the end, or will it be unlucky 13, and we see the third and final green-white checkered attempt? Of course, if we get around to the third green-white checkered attempt and we get yet another caution, the race ends under caution. And I can't remember the last time we had a race in RSR end behind the yellow flag. Certainly none this season, and I'd say even all throughout the second half of the last season as well. I believe it was very early in the 2021 season where we had that happen, wasn't it?
Just as well, listening in to some of the driver chatter. Connor Horn also hit with a lane change violation. And they're never happy when that's the case. I'm just looking at how many modifieds are rolling around the racetrack. No front ends, no rear ends, and I mean, I don't want to say that Brandon 6 is safe, but on the last 2 restarts, right, the first in regulation and then our first attempt at an overtime start, nobody was able to kind of formulate a legitimate shot at him. I mean, he's been pretty rock solid both looks.
Starting to really kind of feel some of the pressure starting to build throughout this field, right? You've got a lot of drivers that are going to be near the back of this field that has the ability to kind of turn this into a green-white checkered number 3 very, very quickly. Because all of these discount modifieds fresh out of the Dollarama, right? They have the ability to try to overtake one another still. But the problem is you got some drivers that just have body panel damage, others that have full-on engine damage, which makes them slow on the restarts. Drivers will be having to scramble left, right, and center. They don't want to get themselves any kind of more spots for the end of this race.
And let's see if Brandon 6 can close this one out in attempt number 2 at a green-white checker finish. Miller to the outside. Casto, Rabel, Davis still inside of the top 5. They get to the restart zone.
Oh,
green flag flies. Top sides check it up. And we're going to race off to 1 and 2.
Oh, Miller's outside wall hard, and caution is out already. And this is going to be the big one, part 2 as well, as they wreck in a turn number 1 as well. 8, 9 cars and another one upside down. Michael Johnson again, and this was after the caution flag waved.
It is a tough break there, and Jeremy Miller involved. Jeremy Miller is not happy. It looked like Jeremy Miller tried to anticipate when this race would restart. And, you know, obviously because of the unique characteristics of Phoenix, the control car needs to wait until the restart zone. However, the 13 Division, I think, tried to anticipate it, tried to guess it, tried to back off, and just kind of screwed everything up there.
Oh, and you see Michael Johnson just get slammed to the outside wall, and the contact from Jeremy Miller is actually what led directly into the second incident, as he really just got kicked over, didn't he? And Sean Cass was the main driver that kicked all of this off, and honestly, Jeremy Miller kind of caused both incidents there. He really did it all to himself. Let's take another look at the big one, and you're going to see right there, Miller gets into it, and then watch on Castle, loose, right down and into the rest of the field, and that collects everybody in behind. And when I mention how this is somehow Jeremy Miller's fault, well, it wasn't Castro that pushed up into Miller, right? It was Miller that came down to the Sean Castro. Sean Castro did not go down nearly as much as Miller thought he would, but Castro doesn't have to. You don't have to go down onto the dogleg if you're on the inside line. That's not where the racing line is.
It's correct. You can assume that a driver's going to go there, but the guy on the bottom does not need to go to the apron, right? The apron is not the line. He can hold his positioning, and I think that was just a restart to forget for Jeremy Miller, right? Tried to anticipate Brandon 6 restarting it, blew it. Tried to anticipate the car underneath him going to the apron, blew it. I mean, it was just not a good look for Jeremy Miller, who I think, Nolan, going back to what we were talking about previously, right, hadn't been able to mount a legitimate battle to Brandon 6, knew that he was going to need to guess it, and it just didn't pay out.
Just one mistake leads into the next. I think Miller was a bit more flustered that Brandon 6 didn't go when he expected him to, and he just tried to get on it right away to try to see if he can't maybe salvage that restart and go at him again, and just caused everything else to kick off as a result. Man, what a rough ride.
It is tough, and again, it just takes another, like, Jeremy Miller probably was one of the cleanest cars left, Nolan. You're looking off at the back of the race center, look at the cars. Casto, Davis, Harris, I mean, they are all missing several body panels. Brandon 6 just needs to get a halfway decent restart, I would think, and he's a two-time winner in 2022.
Imagine having the only clean car. You just look at your mirror, and you see everything behind you. You just got some gaping voids underneath the hoods of some of those cars, which is, I no doubt, where some of these drivers are feeling like where they're at the moment. And listening to some of the driver radio as well, Miller expected 6 to go in the Geico restart zone, right? Fair enough, that's where he's gone to restart before, but he's also allowed to wait until after. There's no rule that explicitly says he has to wait until that restart zone, correct?
Correct. He cannot start before the restart zone, but as the control car, he has the option to restart the race either in that box on this track or up into the green flag, right? And it's very clear that Jeremy Miller went way before when the green flag would have came out. Listen, he tried to guess it. I get it. That was his best hope, was trying to nail it, guess when the 66 was going to go, and it just didn't pan out. So we will try this one final time. Green-white checkered attempt number 3. Half the field just hanging on for dear life, and Brandon 6 trying to put this one away. Green flag in the air.
And nobody able to battle with Brandon 6. Nobody can even get close. He's just got to keep it on the racetrack and hope that they're like, oh! 6 is loose! 6 loose, up and 1, it's in the wall! Grant Davis gonna go through and take the race lead.
He threw it away. Brandon 6, unchallenged, gets loose. Now he needs to play catch up. Grant Davis in the lead to the white flag. 6 gives him a shot. 1 lap to go.
Final lap, Brandon 6 going for it into the dogleg. Grant Davis up on the high side. 6 neck and neck down to the turn number 1. This race is on the final lap.
And Brandon 6 is not going to have the runoff at the corner. Grant Davis, damage it all, is going to have the upper hand. He clears off at turn 2. Last time into 3 and 4. 6 to the inside. Davis rolls out looking for the crossover. It's not enough. And in the end, Brandon 6 comes back for his second win of the season. And after nearly throwing it away, finds a victory lane in Phoenix.
And there was the moment where it all could have gone wrong, loosened up into the wall. The one thing that saved him there, Evan, was he didn't scrape along it enough for Thomas George to close in. If George got by him, it was over.
And he knew, on his own, I said, all he needs is a halfway decent restart, and he's got this in. I mean, it was not difficult for him to do what he needed to do, and it just seems like that he got the nerves to it. And then here, I thought it was done. I mean, Davis has got the run off the corner. He's on the bottom. And then the 24 tried to play it a little bit too safe. He knew 6 was going to throw it in. He lifted to give him the spot, but he lifted too much, right? He wanted to cross him over. It was the right idea, but he gave him too much headway. And credit to Brandon 6. Didn't drive it into the fence in 3 and 4 either. Drove it in hard, but made his line stick. And because of that, after all of that at the end of this race, Brandon 6 survives to get the checkered flag.
Goodness gracious, can't imagine what is running through all these drivers' heads at the moment as Brandon 6 burns it down to the front straightaway. We'll get the chance to find out what was in their heads, though, when all that was taking place in just a couple of moments here, as the field is going to get set to see what we're going to be having for us next week out when we go road course racing for the first time. But for now, 6 has got nothing to worry about. Got one more win notched under his belt in 2022.
An impressive start to the year for the Keep It Real Esports drivers. We take a look at your SK Sim Racing full race results. 6 leads 29 laps en route to the win tonight. He finishes ahead of Grant Davis in second and Cody Harris in third. We'll talk to all of them in just a few moments. Thomas George and Sean Casto round out your top 5 with David Washington, Bradley Burke, Kyle Trudell, Connor Horn, and Sean Kalis the top 10.
Nick Silver's 11th place with Eric Stanford in 12th. It's Sam Nieto in 13th. Brandon Billy is 14th place. Dan Cruz is 15th with Shane Ewan in 16th. Brian Chambliss is 17th. Rhett McBride, Timothy Johnston, and Michael Johnson 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Kyle Kamer, Michael Araya, Chris Rabel, Jeremy Miller, and Anthony DeBarro in the top 25. Again, all of these drivers well off of the lead lap after being involved in several of those late race incidents, with Andrew Friedosh down in 26th, Agano Phillip 27th, Ross Cato, Nick Cohan, and Jaron Winemaster in the top 30.
And that will put Matt Marr in 31st with David Kolb in 32nd. It's Tom Wetmore in 33rd with Kevin King in 34th. 20 laps down along with Joseph Tice. 21 down, you'll find Daniel Eberhard and Shane Parrish, with Dylan Parker, James Pasquarella, and Nick Mara 38th, 39th, and 48th. Renata Major, James Ross, William Schmidt, the drivers who were not able to get themselves out of the 100-lap range, with Garrett Hess, Chris Edwards, Kuczynski, Danson, and Sheen not starting tonight's race after being knocked out in qualifying.
It's a look top to bottom at your SK Sim Racing full race results. SK Sim Racing is an iRacing team that has an emphasis on reaching those who are new to the oval sim racing community. You can find them online at facebook.com/SKSimRacing, on Twitter at SKSimRacing1, and you can race with Champions Race by visiting sksimgear.com. You saw he drove it into victory lane. Now he is standing by with us. Brandon Six is a two-time race winner in 2022. Brandon, congratulations. I'm sure there aren't many races as crazy as this one, though. You find yourself up towards the front. You take two tires late to play some defense. The whole field wrecks. It seems like you're the only guy with a functioning race car left, and then you almost threw it away on that third and final green-white checker. Just tell us about that whole finish of this race.
Yeah, it was a wild race. I mean, it kind of turned out the way I thought there once we got that late race caution. That's why I took the two tires. I figured it would be basically caution fest to the end. Figured I'd take a gamble on it. It paid off, but yeah, like you said, I almost threw it away. I was running a really, really low brake bias in my car, and as soon as I hit the brake, it immediately stepped out, and luckily I didn't fully wreck it and took another shot at it, and luckily got back around Grant there at the end.
We saw a couple of drivers mention, and I don't know if it was all brake bias for everybody, but people sending it into the corner and just missing it, right? Some drivers who missed the show said, hey, I did that on my Q lap, and just kind of threw it away on restarts. We saw people overdriving it as well. Where was that limit like in the first short track race with this next-gen car this season?
Yeah, unfortunately, the way Phoenix drives, you kind of really have to throw it into the corner to get it to roll corner, but there is a very, very fine line. And I mean, obviously you saw it with some guys tonight where they just crossed it driving in too deep. Obviously, like myself, once you get too deep, the rear end just steps out, and sometimes you save it and sometimes you don't.
Well, you've had plenty of success at a couple of different challenges this year. You win on the big track in Fontana, you win on the little track in Phoenix. What is it about this next-gen car that you've got figured out?
Honestly, I like it. I think just honestly from the aspect of it's more in the driver's hands. I felt like I was handcuffed, honestly, with the last-gen car, where it was more pack racing and stuff. But with this next-gen car, more tire wear, a lot harder to drive. It's definitely a driver's car, I'll put it that way.
And what are some of the big things that you've learned as well? I mean, you talk about having the ability to feel like you've got more control over it. I mean, what are some things that you still feel like you got to dial in? What are going to be the things that you're going to try to learn as this regular season continues that should prime you up for a deep run in the postseason?
Yeah, I think the keys, honestly, for me at this point is finding that balance of short run speed versus long run speed, because as we get later into the year and we get to some more short tracks, I know the short tracks have a lot of tire wear. It's going to be key to obviously have that short run speed, but not kill the tires as the run goes on. And honestly, that one run that we had tonight, we were starting to get pretty low on tire wear. I think I was down to like 30s on the rights.
You end up in victory lane. You were the first driver to 2 wins, and as if there was any doubt that a win was going to get the job done, you are now certain with 2 to be competing in the playoffs here in 2022. Brandon, we'll let you get out of here, but before we do, the sponsors, the shout-outs, all of those good folks who keeps powering you to success here in the Full Throttle Cup Series.
We've got Circle B Diecast, Mara Racing Network, Elwood Designs, of course the team, KIR, and then of course you guys that throw on the broadcast. Thank you.
I'll tell you what, we appreciate you racing with us on Monday nights, Brandon. Awesome to see the success that you and the team have had so far this season for you and the entire group. So congratulations on the win here tonight. Best of luck, and we'll catch you next week when we get another first for our first road course race of the year.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
The race winner tonight from Phoenix, Brandon Six, 2 wins in the opening 4 weeks to kick off the 2022 season. The driver who nearly stole it away from him, though, Nolan, was Grant Davis. The 66 left the door wide open. He led the second to last, but not the last lap. You're stood by with the bridesmaid.
I certainly am. Grant Davis joining us up now in the broadcast booth. And Grant, it was one hectic final restart for you. Why don't you walk us through how that final 2 laps were like from green flag to checkered? Grant Davis, we got you with us, buddy? Looks as though Grant Davis might be a little bit speechless here, unfortunately, having a bit of difficulties, it would seem. So instead, we'll move on to your third place finisher, Cody Harris. We'll give a chat to the number 28 driver, Cody Harris, into third place. And Cody, you kind of got a face full of that huge 30 car pile up out of turn 2 coming towards the end of this race. Walk us through it.
Yeah, I had a up and down race. I had contact early and went for a big slide, and then kind of managed the pace and then had enough fuel to make it to the end if it had gone green. And then, I don't know, I think I was sitting around 10th when that happened. And then I'm not sure what went wrong. I saw the 90 get hit, so I started to let off. And I thought I saw a gap to the bottom, but people were coming in from behind, and then the track was blocked. But luckily, my car wasn't too bad. It was still pretty tight there at the end, but I still had all the horsepower, and it let me get another good finish.
You mentioned it was a bit of an up and down race for you over the course of the night. Of course, you started 21st. What was it like for you, kind of having to work your way up through the mid pack?
Yeah, it was really tough to pass here. I kind of just had to wait for if there was any longer run, and I'm pretty good at saving tires with this car, so that's kind of was waiting to happen. Although it never really materialized except for that one long run. I've just got to get better at qualifying. Had I done what I'd done in practice, I'd have started top 10 and maybe had a little bit of a less eventful race, but I'll keep working at it.
And talk us about how next week's going to go. We go road course racing for the first time on the season. You got any hopes coming over into Circuit of the Americas for you?
Yeah, I mean, last year, Danson and I had that epic battle from pretty much start to finish, so I don't know if we can replicate that. I've got a lot of work to do. I haven't quite figured this car out on the road course yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
And thank you, Cody, then, for taking the time to join us for an exciting race here tonight and up in the broadcast booth. Congratulations on a third-place finish. Best of luck next week in COTA.
Thank you.
That was the driver of the number 28 car. Cody Harris joins up at the broadcast booth. And I'm going to see if we can maybe try one more time to see if we can't dial up Grant Davis and maybe give it a chat with the number 24 car. Grant, we got you this time? Doesn't appear so we will not be able to get a talk with Grant Davis tonight, it would seem. Unfortunate, he was looking set to have a solid run there. I'm really hoping that we could have gotten his thoughts on the final battle there, Evan. But you know what? Good that we got to talk to Harris and, of course, your race winner, Brandon Six, instead.
Yeah, we gave it the old try, but appreciate our top finishers sticking around and chatting with us. And we'll keep this brief because it turned into a long night here in Phoenix. But, you know, I think we saw some of what we were expecting to see, right? I mean, we thought the cars were going to be slipping and sliding a little bit, sure, but most of the incidents tonight, car-to-car contact. That was not the story in Vegas. That was not the story, of course, in Fontana, right? So that's going to be important to note going forward at these short tracks. But, you know, in terms of what did we learn here for this track, relating to the championship, you can go long green flag runs. You can make tires last. You can try the two, right? I mean, there's a lot of options strategy-wise if a race can play itself out green. Now, didn't really see all of that come to fruition here tonight, but of course, there's still a lot of different challenges. We've seen now 4 very different kinds of racetracks and another first coming up next week.
road course racing can be some of the great equalizers when it comes to races like these. You often say that rain is the great equalizer in motorsports. Not the case when it comes to stock car racing. At that point, the road courses can become the great equalizers. And of course, Matt Danson could have had a better start to his season, but he was, of course, the road course ringer. Won pretty much all but one of the road courses in 2021, and the one that he didn't win, he didn't even attend because he was serving a suspension. So we'll see if he can have something for us on March 28th down to Texas.
We hope you enjoyed the first off week of the 2022 season, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks' time for our first road course race of the year at the F1 track in Austin, Texas. Until then, though, that is it for us here tonight from Phoenix. On behalf of our entire team at Real Sim Racing, RaceSpotTV, and for our partners at SK Sim Racing and your broadcast team tonight, for Hugo Luis downstairs, for Nolan Rempel, and myself, Evan Pasoko, say thanks for tuning in, and congratulations to Brandon Six, now a two-time winner in 2022. We're back in 2 weeks' time on Monday, March the 28th for the virtual Circuit of the Americas. That race and every race of the 2022 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Till next time, good night from Phoenix.